Matt Fiddes. Happy to have you, my guy. I've been trying to get you for a good while now, man. Finally made it happen. For the people that's not familiar with you, let the people know who you are.
Yeah, so as you said, my name's Matt Fiddes. I'm basically, to me, I'm just a normal martial arts guy. Got bullied at school when I was 7, no good at school whatsoever. Had this vision. I wanted to be a martial arts instructor when I was older. Left school with no qualification. I tried my hardest, but it just didn't work out. I had my personal trainer qualifications. I was into bodybuilding back then and stuff and things. And I had my black belt, and I just wanted to teach martial arts for a living, but no one in the UK had done it before. But in America, back then, there was also like 20, 25 years ahead of us. We didn't have the internet back then. We talk about late 90s. And I took a trip out to San Francisco and I saw these multi-million pound business owners that own all these martial arts schools that you have in America. And one of the school owners took me under his wings, and it's a different culture to the UK. If you're successful in the UK, you get stabbed in the back, they want to bring you down. They don't want your tower bigger than theirs. In America, they take you out to lunch, they encourage you, they congratulate you. It's a very different culture for success. And this person said, look, copy what I've done in my martial arts school, take it back to your classes. I was 17 then. Yeah, long story short, within a year after that encounter, I was making £1 million a year from my martial arts school. And I had the biggest martial arts school in the UK. And now it's built up to over 2,050 locations around the world. And it's the largest chain of martial arts schools and dance schools now in the world. So I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business person. I've also got nurseries and childcare facilities. And I mentor business owners on how to grow and scale their business and do what I did with no qualifications, just a positive mindset and studying the great people. But obviously most people know me for being Michael Jackson's former friend and bodyguard.
Give me the backstory behind that. How did you become Michael Security?
How did it come about? Yeah, it's a bit like a fairy tale story, really. So the success of that martial arts school I had in a very rural, small town in the south of Devon in the UK, which is about 3.5 hours from London, it blew up. And I was like 17, nearly 18. And I had a reporter who had 2 children who were training at my martial arts school. And he came up to me and he said, listen, Matt, you bullied at school, you got no qualifications, I understand. And I've worked out the figures, you got a Ferrari outside, I had a Ferrari 355. It's incredible. Do you mind if I do a story on you and take some pictures? I said, yeah, sure. The guy was called Nick Constable, I remember his name. And he interviewed me, took some pictures of me and went away. I thought it'd be for the local newspaper, and then 3 days later it blew up. I was on front page of international news all over the world. Bully boy becomes millionaire through karate, that's what they called it. Proves the bully wrong. And on the back of that, I went on all national TV, my story. And back then in the UK, we just had 4 channels. Sounds like I'm really old, I'm only 46, but things move on crazy quick, So back in the late 90s, we had like 4 channels. So when you're on TV, you had 25 million people watching you. It was insane. So I went on all the morning shows, and Michael Jackson's best friend is a guy called Uri Geller at the time. And Uri noticed me and wanted to meet me. And he's very much into positive thinking. You can achieve anything you want. And I went to his multi-million pound mansion in near London, and we became close friends. And then one time, middle of the night, he called me up, said, Matt, come to my house. I can't tell you why, but you got to come to my house. It's 3 in the morning. It's very hard to explain to your other half why you can't say where you're going, and Yuri's not telling me who I'm going to see or what's going on. But I believed in him. He was a good mentor to me. He taught me to build the other side to me. I'm a property investor. I got the largest privately owned property portfolio in the southwest of the UK. He taught me how to build that. He said, Matt, I'm never building any more land. So I trusted him, got in the car, drove to his house, gates open, drove down there, nothing really special, got to his living room, and then this very frail man stood up, walked over to me. He bowed and said, hi, Master Fiddes. My name is Michael Jackson. Pleased to meet you. And I'm like, and at the time, I just thought, there's lots of TV shows about me then. And there's a prank show. I think in America you had one called, God, I forget what it's called, Candid Camera. And in the UK we had one called You Be Framed. And I thought, this must be a fake Michael Jackson. Someone's pranking me here, But it became very obvious after just 30 seconds talking to this guy that this was the real deal, and we became friends for the first year. And then I could see he was suffering financially. He lost his long-term security that he had for many years, and they retired. So he was hiring his security companies. He couldn't answer his phone in front of them or nothing. And he was kind of hinting at it, but I just said, look, Mike, I'm the martial arts guy. I'm not a qualified bodyguard. I've had no bodyguard training, but who better teacher than having Michael Jackson as teaching you how to do that? He's been famous since he was 5 years old. So I said, look, I'll take it all on for you. I don't want your money. And I got my staff. I had about 150 staff then who were all martial arts champions and instructors and so forth. And my brother-in-law too, who did his nighttime security when he was sleeping. And in fact, he probably spent more time on Michael than I did, because it's very well known Michael didn't sleep very well. He was out in the corridors on his scooter bike going around the hotel rooms with my brother-in-law. And that's how it turned out. He always offered me money, but I didn't want his money. I wanted it to be a non-transactional relationship, and that's why it worked out so well. So from like 2000 to 2004, I was very much public eye bodyguard. In 2004, of course, he had the false allegations. End of 2003, I had to take a step back then, because that was beyond my scale. And he was stuck in America. You guys have guns, we don't in the UK. And the Nation of Islam looks after him, because Jermaine, his brother's a Muslim, and that was organised. And I was stuck by his side all through that, ready to go to court from where I needed to be. And then we met up with him as friends, with me and his other friend, Mark Lester, who Michael introduced me to, right up to the very end. I spoke to him 2 nights before he died. So the bodyguard him, 2002, end of 2003, and then things got a bit wild, and then it became a friendship thing. Plus, Michael had this thing too. When I started bodyguarding him, I had no children. When I started having children, he didn't want me to be the person taking the bullet. That's how much of a kind guy he is. So I would take more of a backseat and consult him over the phone, and he'd call me in the middle of the night, wake me up with creative ideas and so forth. So yeah, it was a wild time.
I heard that Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that he tested your loyalty by offering you $1 million.
Yeah, so I was with one of my franchise owners called Chris Faulkner, and it was back in when the first car hands-free speakers would come out, and it wasn't great. It was a Mercedes S-Class. I was driving on the motorway in the UK, so the sound came out near the rear view mirror, and Chris was sat next to me, and an unknown number called, and I answered it, and yeah, it was convincing. It was a guy who said, I work for a newspaper. The newspaper was called the News of the World. It's no longer around. It's the biggest Sunday newspaper, who were always out for Michael Jackson. It was the Sunday biggest one there was. Part of the Murdoch Group, I believe. They owned all the tabloids. Anyway, this guy was convincing. He said, listen, they knew I was going to see Michael the next week for an event. So listen, Michael's children are always masked. And that was the decision that was made by Michael's former wife, Debbie Rowe, to make sure they were not kidnapped and no ransom attempts could be put upon them, and they could have a normal life and go to the playground with a nanny and not be recognised. So he offered me £1 million for a picture of them, which I could have easily got from a camera, no problem. Not camera phones, we never had them back then, but from a camera, no problem at all. Of the children unmasked, Prince and Paris. And I immediately said, absolutely not. You know, I was already done well for myself by that point, but I was worth millions by that point anyway. I would never do that. I mean, it's not who I am. So I told the guy what I thought of him, what I thought of the way they report about Michael. And I said to him, I'm going to tell Michael when I see him exactly what you've done, and make sure you never get a picture of those children unmasked. And I hung up on him. And the guy next to me, Chris, he couldn't believe it. He's like, wow, it's incredible, you know. And then, yeah, I tried to get hold of Michael right away. I couldn't get him on the phone. So I called him straight away. I couldn't reach him. He was in America, but I tried Neverland. I tried his New York property, Manhattan. Couldn't get him. So the following week I was with him, and he was in the car sat next to me. And I said, Mike, I forgot to tell you about something. He goes, what is it? He said, last week, you've got to know about this. You've got to be careful. I had a newspaper call me and offer me £1 million commission if I got a picture of Prince and Paris unmasked without the mask on, so they could see what they look like. And he goes, really? He goes, yeah. I've tried to get hold of you, Mike, but I couldn't get hold of you. I've left a message here. I've tried everything. He goes, oh. And then he started crying. He goes, thanks, Matt. I really appreciate that. And I was sort of strange. So what do you mean? He said, that was me. I put a voice on. I was testing you. And he put the exact voice on, like the guy who called me, because he was so good. He's good. No, he's a good singer. He was a good actor and fantastic, you know. I just test you. I do it to my staff from time to time, you know, and someone said something bad about you, and don't take it personally. I do it on other staff members too, my assistants and so on. And it was me. But you took a long time to get hold of me. I said, I've tried everything. And yeah, he shook my hand, gave me a hug, and I was like, wow, incredible. This guy was super paranoid, super paranoid. This was like 3 years into our friendship.
Was that a thing that Michael he always dealt with? People trying to get inside information about him by using the people close to him?
Yeah, they were doing whatever they can to get to anyone around Michael to get private information, private pictures, information about surgery. I mean, he knew how to wind the media up with the mask and the sunglasses so they couldn't really get to know what the hell was going on. He did that on purpose. And the children, I mean, Michael Jackson made the media in the UK. He used to tell me he wanted to live in England, in London, but the media made it impossible for him because they were ruthless against him, absolutely ruthless, always negative. So rather than fight against it, he used to work towards them and feed them stories and to get the publicity to make himself relevant, to help sell albums, get interest for his concerts, which kind of backfired now in the social media age, hasn't it? But yeah, the interest in him and the people around us, not just me, but his family too, his brothers, his sisters, his mum, his dad, especially Joseph, especially, you know, they would go to with crazy offers. And people find this kind of hard to believe nowadays, but Mighty, back then, if you're famous in England back in late 90s, early 2000, you would get paid £250,000 just for a at home with so-and-so shoot for the glossy magazines, like a Hello magazine, OK magazine. I don't know what you have in America, but that's what you were looking at, £250,000 just for a photo shoot of a celebrity at home, sitting on their furniture, showing around their house. It was a different world to what it is now. You're lucky now to get £100 for a story on the Mail Online. I got friends with celebrities now who were in the early 2000s making millions. Now they're lucky to get £300 for a little story interview. You know, it's totally changed and disrupted due to podcasts and the offline social media world we're in. So that was the world we're in back then. So £1 million is not unheard of. In fact, I understand the last picture of Michael Jackson taken was him in the back of an ambulance dead. And that sold for £500,000. So it just shows you, and that was back in 2009. So back then, media was massive. And I think if you're in your early 20s now, you wouldn't really appreciate that. We didn't have social media. We didn't have any. We had MySpace when Michael died. We had YouTube a little bit, but no one really understood it. But so it was very much media controlled. We had to believe what was on the mainstream media. That was the thing.
Let me ask you, right? I know you knew Michael on a personal level, and I know he had a skin condition. Was you able to see him without his makeup?
Yeah. Yeah. So there is a thing that when we go out in public, he'd make a point that I need to go and become Michael Jackson. People think he's dressed like that with his gold symbols, jackets on, and you know, the sticky tape on his fingers and the white glove at home. That didn't happen. When we got back home, or to a hotel suite, he just threw on a pair of jeans and a white t-shirt normally, and you see his arms and stuff, and yeah, he was blotchy all over completely. I didn't understand it at first, I'm honest, because I remember I was in my early 20s when I first got to know him like that. So I didn't know what was going on. Why was he blotchy like that? And it's not something me and him really discussed, because he would always have a doctor with him. I think that's very well known now, in another room somewhere, because he felt like he needed the same privileges as a president. He could get assassinated. You know, there were death threats daily. So yeah, I used to see him. I remember one funny story actually. I was with another bodyguard and Michael was in a very comical mood, and he had his t-shirt on, very short t-shirt on, he looked blotchy, and he just dropped his trousers or pants, as Americans say, his boxer shorts. And he goes, "Look at me, I look like a spotted cow." Because he never bothered treating his legs. He never bothered treating his legs because they weren't on display. So they were very much like black and white, basically. They were patchy. But yeah, so we now know. I mean, I didn't discuss it with him, but we now know. I used to tell people all the time, "Oh, he made himself white because he didn't want to be a black man." I knew that was not true because he had always black friends. He was always talking about being proud to be a black American who's made it, you know, and so on. And I would tell people about the vitiligo and no one would believe it. He would go on Oprah Winfrey and told the world, no one would believe it. He did Martin Bashir's hit piece and he got that across, no one would believe it. But in the autopsy, when Michael died, the coroner confirmed that Michael Jackson suffered from serious vitiligo. But I think we'll get onto the movie in a minute. I think the problem he was taught from a young age, and the movie gets this across, where he was told in a scene to lie about your age. I think he was 10 years old and they kept on saying, "No, you're 8, Michael. In showbiz, it's okay to lie." And he looked up to these people like Berry Gordy and so on. That's why you never knew if he was gay, straight, and so on. And he was told never to get married because you'll lose all your fan base. And when Tito Jackson got married, he was the first at the Jackson 5 to get married. Michael was crying in the corner of the room, Tito told me, because he was thought that's the end of the Jacksons. Because that's what Motown Records would teach him. It's okay to lie for showbiz and so on. So when he's on Oprah Winfrey, when he was on Martin Bashir, I think in his head, his mentors told him, it's show business. It's okay to not tell the total truth about a very private condition that he suffered from, which is vitiligo. And we all know now that, you know, when the police raided the home that he died in Beverly Hills, they found the creams and stuff. It's all public knowledge now. But that wasn't something that me and him would discuss. That was private to him and his doctor. He had a doctor called Arnie Klein in LA. And he would visit him regularly. Arnie Klein would call him. He was a dermatologist. So all I know is the dermatologist was on the phone, wanted to speak to him. He was going to see the dermatologist all the time. So I didn't know the extent of it. But I do know actually one of the makeup artists said that it got to the stage where it started to appear on his face. And because when he dances on stage, he sweats so much, no longer could he put makeup on there. It was just impossible. So he had to make a decision. And that decision was that he had to just use these creams. I believe there's 2 types of creams to take the pigment out. And that was the end of him enjoying what he loved, which was water parks, swimming. He couldn't do that. And he had to have an umbrella over his head. People used to call me the umbrella man. Why are you putting an umbrella over Michael Jackson for? Well, if the sun hit his skin, he had a good chance of catching skin cancer because the pigment, the protection had been taken out. But that was a constant problem for him.
So that's why you always had an umbrella over him. Now I see.
Yeah, because people thought it was crazy because it was sunny and like sunny days and I'm holding an umbrella over him. Why are you doing that for? Is he crazy or what? And he would be very nervous about the sun getting on his skin and he would be altering it for me. And he told me I was the worst umbrella holder he ever had because I couldn't keep my hands still. I was not very patient, you know. So Michael was correcting me the whole time, but that was because the sun would hit his skin and he'd be very prone to skin cancer.
I'm happy you addressed that, man, because there's so many rumors going around online. So happy you cleaned that up, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I say the same change to take his top off. I mean, the guy's blotchy and yeah, it was he had a combination of creams and makeup to get that look. And if you're waiting to go out somewhere, like a public event or dinner, you're talking a couple of hours for him to get ready, you know, to hide all that he's being affected by.
Gotta ask you, because I know you was around Michael at this time when Invincible came out, because I think that came out in '01. What was the deal with that? Sony sabotaging the album? You know about that?
Yeah, so this is the only time I really spoke up to Michael other than when I saw him medicated, but I disagreed with what he was doing. It's funny you say that because I've literally just posted a video on my Instagram of us going to this event where he talks badly about Sony, but I didn't want him to do it. I mean, I was an entrepreneur and a businessman then, but I was probably about 26, 25, 26. So he had this theory. So Invincible did well in terms of a music artist's success, I think when it was released, I think it went straight to 5 million copies sold. But when you compare that to Michael Jackson's success, which is over 100 million with Thriller, it's not right. So me and him were in a hotel room, which is what I think you're referring to, and he was very angry, like on the phone, talking to his people, screaming and shouting how he was going to sue for hundreds of millions of dollars, and that he wasted 5 years of his life, and he cried, and he would lock himself in his bathroom, sobbing that he'd been screwed over. And when he came out, I said, Michael, why do you feel like this? And he said, listen, Matt, I spent 5 years of my life on this album. I think it's only like 7 or 8 tracks on his album. He used to record about 150 tracks, he told me, and narrow it down to 7 or 8 tracks. And it's my greatest piece of work. But Sony Music, this is what Michael told me, are not promoting it like I'm used to. He's used to having statues down the River Thames in London and TV adverts, and you know, everywhere you look, it was Michael Jackson banners up and billboards and radio ads everywhere for Dangerous and History and Bad Tour, and there was none of that at all. So I heard him out. The problem I had with Michael is that I felt you comparing yourself to your biggest competition, Michael, is Michael Jackson, yourself. There is no one bigger than you. So when he was sobbing in tears and his staff had said to me, you go and speak to Mr. Jackson because he's sad. And he had thousands of fans outside chanting, Michael, Michael, all night. We couldn't get any sleep, and he couldn't go near the curtains because they see his silhouette. Then all the other people in the hotel, paying guests, would kick off and want their money back. So he had strict instructions. He could not go near the curtain in his hotel rooms or anywhere. And I said to him, the problem you got is you're comparing yourself to Thriller. Those days are gone. You're never going to, we're going into the digital, but he would not accept it. He said, no, I will beat Thriller. Whatever you dream, you can believe. Whatever you can see, if you can achieve. That's what he used to say. But I think will.i.am convinced him in the end that you really need to get rid of this mindset and adapt to digital downloads. When he lived in Southern Ireland, he had a proper conversation with Michael about this when they recorded Thriller 25. But yeah, he was extremely angry. And do you know what really upset him is they said to him, we're going to do a promotional event. And he was like, oh, finally. And they said, we want you to go to Manhattan, New York, and go into a record store and sit behind the table. And we want you to sign Invincible CDs all day. He's never been asked to do that in his life. I mean, that's normal for other artists, but not for Michael Jackson. He saw that as a big kick in his teeth. He was devastated. But he was contracted to do so. So he called me up and he said, what do you think about this? I said, this can't be right. I said, okay, Michael, you're onto something. So it's not quite right here, you know? And he had to do it. I didn't go that day because my wife had a baby, but he had the Casio brothers next to him, Eddie Casio, I believe, and Frank Casio. Frank was his manager at the time. This would have been end of 2002. I think Michael had to just go through the motions. He was terrified for his life because all these people coming in. He was the most famous man on earth. You won't get the president behind the desk signing it. Actually, there's another famous story with that where they did Michael was so happy about this. The president at the time was Bill Clinton, or maybe it was President Bush. They did a survey and they went around New York with a picture of Michael Jackson, a picture of the president of the United States. And they wanted to see who was most famous, most recognized. And it turned out it was Michael Jackson by a long way. And he heard about it and he was so happy that he was the most famous man in the world. But yeah, for him, he found that was odd and strange. So his theory was that he outsmarted Sony Music. That when you make an album of Michael Jackson's level, you have to borrow money off the record label. That's like an advance for a book. People understand it. So Michael don't just make an album. He would want short films like Thriller and Smooth Criminal. He'd want to make short films by it. So he would borrow a lot of money. I don't know how much he borrowed. I think it's about $200 million he borrowed off Sony Music. And to do that, when you go for a loan, you have to give up an asset. Probably the best way for your viewers, listeners to understand it, collateral. And his biggest asset he had to borrow that kind of money for his biggest album he wanted to make to beat Thriller, Invincible, was his music catalogue. So he gave that up, signed that as security that if the album didn't work, then Sony would get the catalogue. So he thought, and the people around him said, they've outsmarted you, Michael. They're not promoting your album on purpose, because if that album fails, they get a catalogue that's going to be worth over $1 billion. Beatles, Eminem, Beyonce songs, Elvis Presley, the Happy Birthday song, and go on, what he owned. And he would not let that go. So he went on stage. So that video I just posted on Instagram, viewers can go and watch it. They go to official Matt Fiddes, you'll see. We're walking into this nightclub to surprise the fans at a Michael Jackson fan club day. They didn't know. It's in Leicester Square, and they didn't know he was coming. And then we turned up, and he wanted to go on in front of his fans and hold banners saying, "Sony is screwing me over." And he hired a double-decker red bus, and we went outside Sony music offices, and he was like, "Sony sucks." And Tommy Mottola, who was the head of Sony at the time, said he was a devil and he was a racist. And I said to him, "This is a big mistake. They're the most powerful corporation in the world." But Michael would say, "Well, I own half of Sony, man. I own half of it, and I believe they're doing this." And you think about it, people say, "Why didn't I fight harder against him?" But remember, I was in my mid-20s, I was a young guy. Michael was 40 something at the time, 42, 41. And he was the biggest star. Who am I to give him advice about the music business, you know? I'm still learning. I was a multi-millionaire by this point, but I was still, he wouldn't have listened to me. I was just a karate guy to him, you know. It's ridiculous to think he would take any notice of the biggest star, biggest recording artist of all time. But he truly believed it. And yeah, well, look what happened. He lost Neverland in the end. And he owned, the estate managed to keep 10% ownership. They sold it in the end. And in the end, the catalogue got sold, I believe, for over $1 billion, I think. You know more than to Sony Music. They got their hands on it in the end.
I heard you make a comment about how they tried to pressure Michael into selling his catalog. They tried a few times, right?
Michael would get offers all the time to purchase the catalogue. And there would, I won't say the name, but people can work it out. There would be, so when we stay in the penthouse suites of hotels where big superstars stay, we have another level of security. You've got concierge and you've got the hotel security, and we'd stay under a fake name, always. Normally a Disney character or whatever it would be, okay? And so Michael had his privacy. So when the phone would call, the landline, Michael tried the mobile phone thing, it didn't work out because everyone would get his number, he'd get harassed silly. He used to throw them in the Neverland Lake, and he said, "Matt, if they ever emptied the Neverland Lake, all they're going to find all these mobile phones there." Because all the managers that he had would always try and give him a phone because he was quite difficult to get hold of. So when the phone would ring in his bedroom, then he would know it would be somebody who was allowed to have his number. But there was a certain superstar, who we can't name because we'll get sued, who was linked to this catalogue, who never really forgave Michael about buying it, who recommended that he goes and buys music. You know who I'm talking about. And Michael would come out of his room some days crying, saying, he's got to me, he's been abusive on the phone to me, and he will never forgive me for buying this catalogue. But he said he gave this person several times the chance to buy this catalogue back, but he wasn't willing to pay the money. And at the time, he didn't want to bid for it. He didn't think it was going to go for the money. Michael, at the time, I think he bought it for like the ATV catalogue for like 48 million, which you go back then, that's probably, it's got to be $500 million at least. He had the guts to go for it, whereas the artists that had the music didn't. So yeah, a lot of people didn't forgive him, and there was death threats and stuff, and threats against his life about the catalogue. He was the most powerful man in the music industry. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every time somebody would sing on stage, they'd ask Michael Jackson if it's okay, and then he would get paid commission for it. And they wrote the songs. They wrote, like when Eminem dissed him in that music video, Michael was very calm about it. And we couldn't believe it because the guy, I think Eminem was dressed up or a lookalike or something, and he threw his nose on the bed. What was the single called? Just Lose It, I think it was called. And Michael was unupset. He just stayed really calm, didn't say much. And then we found out a few years later that he bought all of Eminem's songs. So every time that Eminem wanted to play a song, he had to ask Michael Jackson and pay Michael Jackson a fee, or Michael could block it. And yeah, he was smart on that. He was smart, but he was advised by a very famous person, invest in music publishing. It's a great investment on earth. And yeah, he bought that person's songs, basically. And it was never really forgiven, although I think now it's back with that person, and Yeah, I think it was just bad business advice that that person received, where Michael just did what he was told.
Was you with Michael when he seen that video for the first time?
No, but my friend was, and Michael did never watch TV, but he would. MTV was a big thing. You remember how big MTV was? It's huge, right? And it was just one channel, so he would watch MTV, and when that came out, my friend was with him, and yeah, no reaction really. I can tell you who the friend was. It was Mark Lester who played Oliver. Played Oliver in the Oliver Twist film. His best friend. They were child stars together in the same magazines together, and he was sat next to him watching it on MTV, and there was no reaction. And Mark said to Michael, "Are you going to sue Eminem?" He's like, "It's okay. Don't worry about it. These things happen, you know. It's show business, and you should respect other artists. I would never do that to him." And as he said, it's a shame because he liked Eminem's music. He used to play Eminem's music a lot. Yeah, and then we found out. I heard a rumor from another friend. Then I called Mark. I said, "Is this true that he's bought all of Eminem's music?" He goes, "Yeah, he has." And it was the biggest kick in the teeth ever. But I think Eminem's come out there and said it was a mistake that he made, and he wished he never did it, and he wished he made peace with Michael Jackson before Michael passed away. But Eminem had people in his ear, no doubt. He was young. You know, we all did. We all had people in our ear around these superstars who get in the way and try and take advantage of our own access to him, you know, and so forth.
Who was some of the artists that had to call Michael for permission?
I don't know how legally it works, but I can give you an example I think people who Googled the songs that he owned. I remember a funny moment when I was with Jermaine and Tito, and we were in a diner in Encino, California, near the Havenhurst home. And behind us, there was a family, and it was a birthday party, and they were singing happy birthday. And Tito said, I hope they're going to write a royalty check out for my brother for singing that song, because he owned the happy birthday song. But I believe he owned Beyonce songs, Eminem songs. I mean, Elvis Presley, a lot of the songs. Obviously, he owned the Beatles catalogue, which is the most famous and controversial one. But yeah, so I believe some Bob Dylan. He just used to buy it all up. His lawyer was very clever. John Branco was very clever when it come to that. That was his speciality.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people was mad over him owning that Beatles catalog.
It's controversial because Paul McCartney, they were recording Say, Say, Say at what was known as Sycamore Valley Ranch, which is now Neverland Ranch. Michael loved it there so much he bought the ranch, and he asked for investment advice, and Paul McCartney said, "You should buy music." And Michael turned to him and said, "I'm going to buy your songs one day." And Paul just laughed it off. Paul's been on TV and talked about this, and he just laughed it off. And yeah, he ended up buying all Paul McCartney's and the Beatles songs. And actually, it really saddened Michael, because I was in the back of a car. We were coming back from an event, and he said to me, "You know what I miss about London so much?" I said, "What is it, Mike?" He goes, "I miss going to Paul McCartney's house and hanging out with him and Linda, his late wife, who died of breast cancer. And we were such close friends, and I really regret that me and Paul didn't talk more, and that the way things have ended up, you know." But he was not happy about the breakdown in the relationship. He didn't think he'd done anything wrong. He said to me that I gave Paul countless times to buy the records back, but the relationship was broken down so much, and lawyers were fighting, and he didn't believe that Paul got the messages via lawyer to lawyer, that the lawyers were not passing the message on to Paul. Because that what used to happen a lot. So I would leave a message with certain people and assistants or other bodyguards, and they all want to try and keep Michael to themselves. This happened a lot with celebrities, and they wouldn't pass your message on, because I would have a certain influence over Michael Jackson to do or not do something. This is why his family was shut out. His family were trying to rescue him and help him. But Michael was told by the people around him, they just want to get hold of you to become the Jackson 5 again and tour the world, because they've all got no money anymore, you know? And he used to listen to them. But in fact, they heard what was going on with the doctors and the medication abuse and the financial, and they wanted to get him back in the family fold. They had no interest in getting back on the road. They wanted their little brother back. So when Jermaine tried to get through to him, Tito, they used to beg me, come on, Matt, is there any way that we can get Michael to understand we do not want to do a tour. We just want our brother back. And they didn't want his money. I remember Tito, it was Christmas time when the iPhones just came out. And every sibling of Michael's got sent a present, the latest iPhone. And Tito didn't want it. So he sent it back to Michael with a note. He wrote it in front of me. And he said, dear little brother, I don't want your money. I don't want the material things off you. I'm not interested in a tour. I just want a telephone conversation with my little brother. I miss you. I love you. Your brother Tito. And he sent the iPhone back to Michael. Yeah. But then the people around him would say, yeah, he's just saying that so that you can get on the phone, and then slowly they'll convince you to get back on the road again. And then Joseph would be in charge again. And that's what he was up against all the time. It was hard. I'll get pushed out at times. Mark Lester would get pushed out. Uri Geller got pushed out. And if you told Michael sometimes something he didn't want to hear, then he would find it easier to shut you out and deal with it, and it got worse and worse towards the end, unless you were a doctor, because the doctors had that ability to get him hooked on stuff that even if we would hear stories where the fans would tell us that doctors were selling £10,000 visits to take the fan who took out loans or credit card loans up to Michael's hotel suite to have a picture of him and to be introduced to him. But if we went to Michael with this information, he would choose the doctor over us because they got him hooked on what the movie hints at: Demerol, OxyContin, painkillers and relaxants, downers, sedatives, what eventually killed him, pretty much, what contributed towards his death. So it was very hard to get rid of the doctors. Very difficult. Give it a one and another one would turn up.
How was Michael's relationship with Joe Jackson from your point of view?
Yeah, so Joe's a character. Okay, and I saw a video last night, which I'm going to put out on my social media because it's kind of interesting. It was like 4 or 5 days after Michael died, and Joe was on the red carpet talking about, we've just lost the biggest superstar of all time. He didn't mention my son. And then he started promoting his latest record label, literally 5 days after Michael died. I was very intrigued when I would meet Joe. I remember being a bit terrified of that when I heard Joseph Jackson's on his way, which is ridiculous because I was the martial arts champion, 6'4". I had big muscles back then. I haven't got it anymore. Got no use for being 20 stone of muscle anymore. And this 70-year-old bloke would turn up, who was half the size of me, but he had this presence about him. The other brothers used to nickname him the Hawk, on how he'd look for everything with suspicion and question you and stuff. And I've got private footage of me and Joe, and he would read through contracts. He'd be very detailed. But the real truth is, Michael's relationship with him was that, I've talked about it before. In 2001, we're on our way to do a speech to Oxford Union. And at the time, he was being mentored by a spiritual advisor who's also very controversial. I'm not a big fan of him. I was in the first year. He was friends with Michael for 2 years. Very much lived with Michael for the 2 years. A guy called Rabbi Shmuley Patek, who lives in New York. No doubt you've probably heard of the guy. But he was good for Mike in terms of trying to get him away from the bloodsuckers, we'd call them. And we're in this van, SUV, 8-seater, and we're on the way to the Oxford Union, where Nelson Mandela has spoken, Mother Teresa has spoken. And it's a big thing for Michael Jackson. This was huge, right? This was absolutely massive. He was so nervous, he had to drink some alcohol before he went and rehearsed we stayed at the Lanesborough Hotel, and he rehearsed the script over and over again with Shmuley to get it perfect with the rabbi. But it talked about his dad and his childhood, and he didn't want his father to hear secondhand about it. So Shmuley said to him, the rabbi, listen, you need to put this all behind you now. You're the biggest star on earth. You keep telling me that if it wasn't for your dad, you'd be dead. Coming from Gary, Indiana, you'd be dead. You'd be broke. All your friends that you had, his brother's friends used to tell me this too. Jackie Jackson used to tell me, Tito, Jermaine, all their friends are in jail, dead, or addicted to drugs. And you keep telling me this. You need to let it go. Back in the 60s, this was how it used to be, Michael, you know? Every parent used to discipline their kids like this. And I know it's extreme that they went to, but I remember Jermaine telling me, saying, listen, Matt, none of my brothers have had problems. None of us have gone to jail. None of us have got, you know, recreational drug problems. And to have 9 kids from Gary, Indiana, that's pretty impressive, isn't it? I mean, that's insane for the 60s. So he used to talk about his childhood, but then he would say, but look what Joseph's done. So whenever you watch TV programs about him, it would cut at that point. So Martin Bashir one, he would say, oh yeah, my father used to beat me up, he used to whip me and smash me up, throw me against the wall. But then he'd go on to say, but I forgive him for all that because I'd probably be dead. Look what he's done. He's took us out of Gary, Indiana. And look what's happened to me and my brothers. He saved us. He saved our family forever. Who knows where we'd ended up? But they cut that. They don't show that part of the interview, ever. They want that controversy. And then Joe used to watch that and be upset with Michael. So the rabbi said, why don't you call your dad and forgive him? And he asked one of the other bodyguards, the Americans in the car, do you know where Joseph is? They said, we do. He's in Las Vegas. So they handed the phone to him. It was a Nokia communicator. It's quite funny because they used to, I don't know if you remember these phones, like the latest Nokia that came out. And it was like a keyboard. You'd open it up and that loudspeaker, you could text at the same time. They're pretty cool. We all had them. And we only heard partial of the phone call. So Michael had this thing about putting phones to his ear. So initially, he put the phone to his ear. Then he realized he could open it up and have it on loudspeaker. So we caught like the last few minutes of the conversation. So it went something along the lines of, is this Joseph Jackson? He goes, yeah. So, hey, Joe, it's Michael Jackson. That's how professional the relationship was. I thought, that's kind of odd. You don't say it's dad, it's Mike, you know, or it's your son, Michael. And he said, listen, I'm on the way to Oxford Union. I'm going to talk about you. And at this stage, Michael opened up the phone because he realized that there's a way of doing hands-free. He thought phones caused brain tumors, basically, on your head. I got footage with him with this Nokia communicator. That's the name of the phone. And he said, and Joseph replied, oh no, what are you going to say, Michael? And he said, don't worry, Joseph. I'm gonna say how things were, but what you did for us as children, as Jackson 5, and the speech will end on, you know, I wouldn't change anything because look where I am. I'm going to speak at the most prestigious place ever, Oxford Union. And then he said, Joseph, I just want to tell you I love you. Bye. And then he closed the phone, boom, looked out the window and he had tears rolling down his eyes. And then he turned to the rabbi and he said, I think that's the first time I told Joseph that I love him. And then the speech, that was the most horrific thing to watch. I was literally, we were privileged enough to go in. Michael backed out minutes before. We were in like a holding room. He was terrified, standing on his own. Everyone was too scared to go near him because he's Michael Jackson, and the normal bodyguards weren't around then. And then Uri Geller turns to me and he says, Matt, he's going to back out. This will crucify his career. That the Oxford Union is full of people ready for him to speak. The media, the whole world's media here. But he'd broken his ankle. He's in a lot of pain. And for Michael to get in front of stage and perform with 80,000 people was no big deal for him. He didn't understand how he could do that and not get nervous. But he was petrified about public speaking. So he said, Matt, go and convince him. And I'm like, Yuri, how am I supposed to convince the biggest star in the world who performs 10 nights in a row to 8,000 people that he's going to be okay talking to 500 people, university students? But he said, go, just try. We can't have him back out. It's be bad for all of us. So I go up to Michael and he's looking down, very shy. And I said, Mike, you'll be okay. Just think of it as a concert. Just think of it like you're performing in front of thousands of people, like you're doing Billie Jean, doing what you're used to doing. He goes, you think I'll be okay? I said, you'll be fine. I just follow the script, you'll be absolutely fine. And he went in there, he did it, and he sobbed and cried his way all the way through. It was very hard to watch. And then afterwards, we went for a secret, we got invited by Charlie Chaplin's family, because he studied Charlie Chaplin's grandchildren, for a midnight dinner at a place called Blenheim Palace that used to be the home of Winston Churchill, our former Prime Minister in the UK many years ago. So this is like an incredible palace place. And it was quite funny because we didn't know if he wanted to go anymore or not. He said, Michael, do you still want to go to the midnight dinner with the chaplains? And Richard E. Grant came with us and people like that. He goes, yeah, I want to go there. I want to find out more about Charlie Chaplin, and I want to see Winston Churchill's home, and so on. And we went there, and at the time in England, we had something called the foot and mouth disease. It's like a disease spread, they call it the mad cow disease, where it spread amongst cows and bulls, and they were killing them at a rapid rate. I don't know if America got it or not. And before we entered the grounds of this palace, we had to get out and put our feet in disinfectant liquid, right? Which is kind of bizarre thinking about it, and then get back in. Now, Michael didn't think he had to do it because he's Michael Jackson, right? So the security at Blenheim Palace said, unfortunately, Mr. Jackson, you have to do it too. And he's like, me too? So yeah. I said, yeah, I got my loafers on and my socks and I'm going to be wet through. And he laughed his head off and he stood on it. He had a plaster cast on as well. He did it anyway. He got back in the car. He goes, I didn't think I'd have to step in disinfectant ever before in my life to go to dinner. And we had this incredible dinner, midnight dinner, and for a couple of hours. And yeah, and we nicknamed him the King of Oxford because he nailed it at Oxford Union. And we got back at 3 in the morning, and he overslept the next morning because he was meant to be best man at Uri Geller's wedding. And we couldn't start the ceremony because Michael overslept by 2.5 hours. And we had to have the dinner first. But Michael had the rings. Because Uri gave him the rings. So he wanted Michael's energy to be in them overnight. So they couldn't get married at Uri's house. We had a big marquee up until Michael Jackson turned up. So we were all trying to wake Mike up, say, Michael, you're late for Uri's weddings. They can't start because you got the rings. And he laughed, and we sped like crazy all the way to Uri's house. And yeah, so we had the food first and so on. Then he handed the rings to Uri with the rabbi, and it's a Jewish ceremony. It's all this nonsense about him being anti-Jewish too. I mean, all his friends were Jewish, and I had this controversial, not conflict, but with another podcaster recently in America where they were saying he's anti-Jew. Well, I didn't get that impression because Steven Spielberg is Jewish, Mark Lester is Jewish, David Guest is Jewish. All the people around him were Jewish. His best buddies. And also this was a Jewish ceremony, and Michael even wore the Jewish cap. So I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where all this, they're trying to go down the whole anti-Jew conspiracy thing, which I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in all that stuff. But that guy used to have like religion of the month. He kind of couldn't really figure it out because he was raised a Jehovah's Witness. When his kids got christened, it was a naming ceremony in Las Vegas, and Mark Lester was their godfather. And then Michael was godfather to Mark. They did it all at the same time at a hotel in Las Vegas. So yeah, it's a lot of nonsense out there. But yeah, there you go. That's the truth. So Joe to me, was I scared of Joe? Yeah, absolutely. And but the other brothers, they've had a bad word to say about him, Mike. They really did not. But they used to say, Michael's different to us, Matt. He's sensitive. He's the one who could watch people in Africa who are dying of AIDS, starving kids, who would cry. Jermaine's tough. Tito's tough. Jackie's tough. Michael was very sensitive, and do you know what? I saw some articles recently on social media, and I really believe in this. This might be a bit controversial, might get a bit of hate, but it's my opinion, is that when I started my martial arts brand off, which will be 30 years next year, we never had the labels ADHD, autism. We had kids that needed their energy to be channeled because they couldn't sit still, but they were highly intelligent. They were super incredible at martial arts. They had this talent, where they could focus like no one could. And this psychologist really believed Michael was different because, like Beethoven and all these people, he was more than likely autistic. And that would explain. He's not weird. He's not strange. Yes, he was a little bit different. He used to stay up all night recording music. He was a genius. He was extremely shy. His communication skills one-on-one or in small groups was very difficult. But he was not a weirdo. But I think if he was around nowadays, he would have been diagnosed with autism and ADHD. And me too. I'm not normal. I was a millionaire by the time I was 19. I owned lots of property. I had the biggest chain of martial arts school now. I work all the time because I love it. I reckon if they tested me for ADHD and autism, I'd blow the machines off the scale. But I'm saying it with the love. I think people would understand Michael Jackson more today, and we'd understand him more had we understand the dynamics of what we now know about human psychology, that geniuses tend to be autistic, or they have a high on the spectrum, they call it, don't they? You know, they can play the piano incredible. They can zoom in. They're intelligent. The dance skills, like how the hell could all these trained dancers with Thriller from university dancing all their lives, and then they rehearse it. He just comes in, picks it up, off he goes. No rehearsals. You know, I used to ask Michael before a concert, what preparation do you do? Because when I trained for fights, it would be diet perfect, weight training 4 times a week, cardio every day, stretching. Michael's performances were 3 hours long, more intense than a 3 rounds of 3 minutes fight like I had to do. And he said, no, I don't do any of that, Matt. It just comes from above. I don't know. I do not train. He said, I dance, I get up, and I do not have to prepare myself for anything. It just comes from above. I can't explain it. That's what he said to me. That was at a dinner table, eating dinner. He just said, I can't not explain where the songs come from, where my dance comes from, and why I don't get cardiovascular tired on stage. Don't get it. So that was really interesting to me as an athlete, because I had to put my body through hell for 3 rounds of 3 minutes. Yeah, this guy, I watch him on stage, and he comes off stage and he's sweating, but he's fine, you know. It's just trying to get him to sleep was the difficult part, because he's so buzzed up. That was the issue.
Speaking of that, it's also been said that Michael, he had trouble sleeping.
Yeah, well, the time where I really realized that things were not right and the wrong people were around him. And I got to plead this, that bear in mind, I am in my early 20s for the haters start jumping on me to allow this to happen, right? I was probably 22, 23, maybe. I was just a kid. I got a 22-year-old daughter now, and I look at her and I think, gosh, she had all the houses I had and the big business and this kind of pressure. I wouldn't want her to live the life that I had between 18 and 22. So for me to say to Michael, no, I'm not going here to get you this, would be hard. So he sent me via another American bodyguard to go to a pharmacy to get I guess it's like a cough syrup. It was called Nytol. And it had some kind of antihistamine in it, okay? And he wanted 2 bottles of it. They wouldn't sell me 2 bottles of it. And he wants some toothpaste and a few other things as well, okay? So I had to get the shop for him. So I went out and shop. He can't do that for himself, obviously. This was in London. So I got him a bottle of Nytol. I got him his toothpaste that he wanted, his toothbrushes and so on. And then I went to another pharmacy and I got another bottle of Nytol. This cough, I think it was like cough syrup medicine, which you take at night and it helps you sleep. I get to his hotel room and it horrified me because he drunk him. He like downed him, boom, 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 and then he got another one, downed it. And I was like, whoa, I think you should just take 2 5 ml, teaspoons of that, Mike. So now I have to have it or I won't sleep. And I got this important meeting in the morning. I got people flying in. And it didn't work. He drank 2 bottles of it and he was still wide awake 2 hours later. He stayed up all night and he met these German promoters about a book in his pajamas and dressing gown. And I said to him, have you slept? He goes, no, I didn't manage to sleep. So wow. And I got concerned at that point. That's the first time I called the friends around him. Listen, I saw Michael last night and he drank 2 bottles of Nytol in front of me. That's not right, surely. But no one was willing to say anything because the doctor was there. And when the doctor flew in, then the doctor had a higher level of medication than, yeah, I didn't know what the hell he was giving him until I got an injury. I got this on footage actually too. There was a fan scrum and I got in the back of the car. I was protecting Michael and I tore my forearm. And Michael was deeply upset. And we're in the lift going up to the whole floor that he had hired for us all, where his penthouse suite was at. And he was crying in the lift and said, I'm so sorry you got injured, Matt. I'm going to send my doctor to you. And I was in another room with Uri Geller, actually. And then the doctor comes in. He says, oh, Mike says, I need to come and see you. You've hurt your arm? He goes, yeah, I've here. He goes, oh, you've torn some tendons. He said, I can fix that. And he started drawing a syringe. And Uri Geller said, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm just going to inject him with Demerol. He said, no, you're not giving Matt Demerol. Go away. No way. That's not meant for this. It's paracetamol Minor painkillers is fine. Matt, you're not having that injection. I didn't want the injection. I'm scared of needles, you know. The guy was going to inject me with this. Now I know it's called, in England, it's called pethidine. They use for women in labour. In America, it's called Demerol. He got hooked on that. It was very well known. He'd go see Arnie Klein in the daytime, be on a drip of Demerol, and then Conrad Murray thought he was treating him for insomnia, which was, he was treating him for withdrawal from Demerol overuse. But this doctor was injecting. So at that time, I realised that this doctor, they were giving him stuff they shouldn't be giving him to help him sleep. But we managed to get rid of that guy. Michael nearly died on us in 2003 in the States, in America. And unknown to me, but one of the entourage is very clever. So in America, I understand if you're a doctor in one state, doesn't mean necessarily you can administer drugs in another state. You need a license, there's different laws. And he administered this medication to Michael Jackson, and Michael was barely breathing, and Paris, his daughter, brought it to our attention. And they ran to him, revived him, and he didn't want paramedics to come because it'd be worldwide news. And we managed to say to that doctor, if we ever see you with Michael ever again, if you ever call Michael ever again, we will tell the authorities in the States what you did. You'll lose your license, you'll go to jail. We never heard from that doctor ever again. Gone. But as soon as he goes, another one comes. Sometimes they would say no to Michael, but Michael had this thing that he would say, it was to give me a bit of a hint. He said to me one day, he said, Matt, one thing you have to learn about doctors is that they can never measure pain. And I thought about it for a second. I thought, okay. And there's a lot of people at the moment, especially in the UK, I think like 45% of the UK are on benefits, welfare, I think America call it, who have pain-related conditions where doctors cannot dispute with it because they got to go along with it. So they have to prescribe the medication, they get full benefits, they get given a house, they get their food shopping paid for, they get clothing paid for. They're better off than the working people in the UK at the moment. I don't know how it is in the States. I think it's very similar over there too. So he used to say to me that doctors could never measure pain. And that gave me the indication once, because there was one doctor, we're in Manhattan, and we never had anyone with us. And the hotel organised a doctor. And when you try and get a doctor for Michael Jackson, it's very difficult. So you'd ring them up and you would say, we want a doctor to come to the hotel. So you're sure, what's the patient's name? Michael Jackson. And they would say, okay, I'm Iris Presley. And they put the phone down on you. So we had to get concierge to call up, and the doctor was not told who it was. So the hotel would have a relationship with a doctor, a very good doctor, someone who's credible, who wouldn't take any risks. I remember this one time the doctor came in and I said, Mr. Jackson's in there, off you go. Michael said he was in incredible pain in his back. And he came out and he said, I gave him some painkillers, but just want to warn you that Mr. Jackson just asked me to give him enough medication that would bring down a horse. And there's no way I'm getting involved in this. And he walked off, he refused to. And Michael was so angry, throwing things all around the hotel suite. He was so mad that this doctor wouldn't give him what he wanted. But yeah, I think the movie touches on that. Demerol, this makes me sleepy, I don't like taking it. They're trying to blame it on the scalp, which I don't believe. I believe that he was trying to black out emotional pain, because he never complained about like pain in his scalp with me, ever. I never heard him complain about that. That was long dealt with, as far as I was concerned. But emotional pain, I think Rabbi Shmuley went on record recently when he was interviewed. He believes the same thing, that these painkillers, you don't get them in the UK. Well, maybe you do if you got cancer or you're dying or something, but these morphine-related opiate drugs, Hollywood is like the norm, isn't it? How many stars have we lost now due to these medications, where it gives you this, apparently gives you this lift out of reality, you know? So I believe when I saw him most medicated was when he was facing the most emotional, painful times of his life and loneliness.
Is it true that Michael, he was lonely? And the reason why I'm asking you is because one of his maids, she came out saying that he was lonely. Nobody would come see him. Nobody would call him.
Yeah, I was with him when Yuri asked him. He said, Michael, are you a lonely man? And he said, Yuri Geller, I'm a very lonely man. There was never anyone around him. There's another bodyguard called Bill Whitfield who looked after him for the last 2 years of his life. He was shocked. Like no one would come around No one would visit him. No one would ring. And to get to Michael, you'd have to ring the bodyguard. Sometimes Michael would reach out to us, obviously personally, but no one would be ringing him. No family. His mother would, Mrs. Jackson, Catherine, but there would be no visitors, there'd be no friends. And when he died, everyone came out of the woodwork. And we're like, well, where were you all? You could have stopped it here. You could have saved him, you know? But yeah, Bill looked after when Michael lived in Las Vegas. So Michael went from Southern Ireland and he was good. Clean of drugs, no alcohol, nothing. He lived in Bahrain, couldn't get his hands on it. Went to Southern Ireland. He made Thriller 25, recorded with Akon, Will.i.am. Then he went back to Vegas because he wanted to try and get a residency there, like Celine Dion had, where he didn't have to tour anymore. He could just stay on the strip. But no one trusted his reliability and he wanted a lot of money and no one wanted to pay it. And that's when we hooked back on the stuff, we believe. But yeah, Bill Whitfield will tell you, he's on record as saying that there was no one around, ever. Just on his own. Very sad, lonely life. Biggest star in the world. It's lonely at the top, that's what they say, you know.
But from your point of view, you feel like he didn't have to live a lonely life because his brothers, they wanted to be in his life.
They went to great lengths, and I witnessed it. They actually did an intervention, they call it, where they turned up at the Las Vegas house unannounced and demanded to see Michael. And they had like a security hut. And Michael came out, sat with them all and convinced them all enough that he's okay. There's no issue. And then demanded that they went away. But yeah, the family were trying, especially Joseph, because they would hear through the fans would always find Michael wherever he go. They would hear things were not right. And Joseph was quite easy accessible. So the fans had his number and they would ring him and say, Michael's not right, something's happened. That's how Joseph found out about Michael dying, the ambulance. One of the fans called him and said, an ambulance is at Michael's house. We think he's in there, just to let you know. And but Joe would turn up at the property or wherever we were all the time. And he would be scary to turn up and say, I want to see my son. Let me see my son, you know. Get out of the way. Stop me see my son. But it wasn't us. It was Michael's. Michael would say, you know, he needs to book an appointment. The only person that didn't need an appointment was his mother. But the brothers used to try to get to him, but to try and help him, to try and get him back as part of the family fold, to get him away from what they were hearing, the horror stories, you know, which were true. It was sad, but we tried. I tried my best too. But you got to remember, I was a guy in my mid-20s trying to convince Michael that Jermaine is good for you. Tito's good for you. You know, Jackie said to me once in an airport, he said, I just leave him alone, Matt. When Michael's ready, he's ready. I don't want him to think that when I reach out to him that he wants me to be part of the Jacksons. I'm his big brother. I'm protective of my little brother. When he wants me, he knows where to reach me. And Tito had the same approach as well. But Jermaine was hearing stories about Michael's health and what was going on. And he was worried about his little brother's life. He actually said to me once, Jermaine, we were in Birmingham at a Muslim Islam convention because Jermaine converted to Islam. And I was bodyguarding him. I was in his hotel suite. And he said to me, it's very sad. This must have been maybe 2006, a few years before Michael died. He said, my biggest fear, Matt, if we don't sort this out soon, is I'm going to watch, and he pointed to Sky News. So I'm going to be watching Sky News one day and I'm going to see a banner up saying, Michael Jackson dies, dead. And I said, yeah, I agree with you, Jermaine, but I don't know what else I can do. You know, there's nothing else I could do. Michael just used to stare at me. I was just a young kid to him who was bodyguarding him. He had respect for me, for my business achievements and stuff, but who was I to tell him about his own family and what went on? You got to remember that film finished in 1988, the Michael movie. I was at school then. I was listening to Bad in PE lessons. I remember that vividly. At junior school. So who was I to question Michael about what he thought about his father and his brothers? But the relationship past 2001 with Joseph Jackson had changed. That man, Joseph, slept by Michael's bed at Neverland to make sure that he didn't commit suicide. He went to court with him every day and held his hand. He was there for him when he needed him. But he's different. He just didn't know how to show his love for Mike. But it just, didn't understand him. He was kind of a complex character himself. But yeah, I didn't have any problems with Joe. He was tough on me too. He was tough when we were filming things, or like I said, legal stuff. And he felt that Michael was being taken advantage of, and he wanted to get in there and get these people away.
When you was around Michael, did you see any communication between him and Janet?
Yeah, I only had one conversation with with Michael about Janet. And we were walking, we're at Mohammed Al Fayed's house in Oxted, just outside of London. And we were walking along his grounds to go to Dodi Al Fayed's grave. Dodi Al Fayed is Mohammed's son. He died in the car crash with Princess Diana. And he was buried on the grounds of Mohammed Al Fayed's home. I never spoke about this much before because it's very private information. Mohammed Al Fayed, sadly, he passed away a few years ago. So I think it's okay in context for the world to know. I think he's out there now anyway. So it's quite a walk from the house to this. It's where Dodi's buried, and there's candles lit. It's a very nice vigil to Dodi. And Michael kneeled down and did a prayer. And he made me kneel down and do a prayer as well. I didn't know what, I just kind of copied Michael, to be honest. Michael was crying. And on the way back, we talked about Pele, the footballer, and he talked about his allergy to horses, because there's horses there, because he was allergic to horses. And then I asked him about Janet. I said, Michael, how's Janet? And he's like, you know what, Matt, it's interesting. Everyone always asks me about Janet Jackson and my relationship to her. I said, I've got to be honest with you that I've not heard from her in a couple of years. And it's not because we're not close, but she's got her own career. I have mine. She's with another record label, which is in competition with mine. And recently she brought out a Netflix series, and it shows you they've recorded a music video together called Scream. And she wasn't even allowed to socialize with her brother unless it was controlled. So her part was filmed when Michael was out of the way, and his part was filmed when she was out of the way. That's how worried they were, worried about maybe Michael taking it wrong with his record label. Who knows? But Michael said to me, everyone assumes we're so close, but we rarely speak. Not because we don't love each other or nothing, but because she's so busy, I'm so busy, and we have rival record labels. There is no one calling other than Mrs. Jackson, and presidents around. President Clinton used to call a lot, and his staff members in America and stuff. His personal assistant, Johnny Cochran, he used to call a lot. He was dying at the time, but he was still an advisor to Michael. Macaulay Culkin used to come a lot, visit. Mark Lester, but no, there was very few people.
What about LaToya?
Never. Never. Never, never, never. And I think I never talked about the only time. So when you see pictures of LaToya, I'm not a big fan of LaToya, I have to be honest with you. Okay, now I don't know LaToya. I know she doesn't like me too much too, which is just fine. I can live with that. It doesn't bother me. I will never forgive her for what she did back in the 90s. And I don't think Michael ever did. I don't think you can. He just did that maybe to please his mum and his father, just to get on with life. You know, family fallout. But that was quite harsh to go on national TV to accuse your brother that you believe he is a child molester, and that she's seen checks written for hundreds of millions of dollars along with her mum to accusers and stuff like that. I don't believe Michael ever forgave her. Of course, he couldn't talk about it anyway because of the contract he signed for that 93 settlement. But the times when she did get to meet him is when she knew, I think anyway, my opinion, that there was a time where James Brown was performing, and Michael wanted to go there and do a speech in honor of James Brown. And she heard that Michael was going to be there. Being LaToya Jackson, she could get access. Backstage, she got a photo with him. You'll see the photo with him. No doubt you've seen that picture. I think Michael's wearing like a white silvery top. Another time in Germany, he was there and he went out shopping, and she just so happened to be shopping at the same store. But other than that, no. I've got to be honest, the time I knew him, he never mentioned her, and there was no phone calls coming in from LaToya Jackson. And also, we made a TV show. So she said that she was made to say those things by her controlling husband at the time. And there may have been truth to that. I don't know. 93, I was still at school. I don't know. But then she got married again to a guy called Jeffrey, who I'd spoken to. And we were doing this TV show, and all the brothers and family were happy to take part, including Michael. But when I spoke to Jeffrey, who was at the time the boyfriend and manager of Latoya, Jeffrey told me that Latoya wants £20,000 to turn up on this TV show, which was to help Tito Jackson's career, basically, help his profile. He was the only person who never done a solo album, and they all wanted to rally round him and help raise his profile because he'd thrown all his attention into 3T, Taj, Tarrell, TJ, great guys, because they lost their mum so young. So he gave up his superstar life and he'd become a dad full-time, raised them. They became super successful, and he wanted to bring out a solo album and become famous in the UK, like Jermaine did Big Brother here. Jermaine's a very famous star in the UK, and Tito could walk around unrecognised. He wanted to get changed that and release his album. But Latoya refused to do it. So we were told by this guy called Jeffrey, lest she was paid £20,000. So, and also some of the fans tell me who've gone to make documentaries that they've actually paid Latoya to do an interview about Michael Jackson since in his passing. You know, she'd always want money. She'd always want money. But I don't know. At the end of the day, everyone's got to live. They've got to survive. I don't know what her income stream is. I don't know what she does. She does reality shows, I believe, in America. I think she's 70 years old now. But yeah, she's not, I've never met her, to be fair. I've never taken a phone call from her. And neither of my mates who are close with Michael too. So she was, no. But Michael was a great guy. So I think he would do whatever his mum would tell him to. He loved his mum so much, you know. When I told my mum had breast cancer, he was devastated, and he would call her every day. When it came back again and it was terminal, he heard through one of his friends, and he didn't want to call me. He waited till he saw me face to face, and he said, "Matt, I've heard. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that your mother has got terminal cancer, and she's only got 6 months to live. Is that true?" I said, "Michael, it's true." And he started crying. He goes, "God, I don't know how I'd ever handle my mother passing." And he never got to witness that. Obviously, she's still alive now. She's 96. He passed before her, but he would call my mum every day. And she went on to live another 4 years. And she believed that's because of Michael's positivity. And he went and visited her in secret in the UK, in the bungalow, and talked to her for hours on end. And my stepdad would offer him cups of tea and biscuits and stuff. And he would just be normal and just chat to her and keep her positive and try and find professors for us. He found his professor in Dublin with experimental drugs. He went out of his way to try and help her live a long life. But she credited her living longer due to Michael Jackson's positivity.
When you was around Michael, did you hear him speak about Diana Ross?
That's a good question about Diana Ross. Because when the will came out, just like you, I read it and I saw it. The children were in the care of Catherine Jackson, which makes complete sense, or Diana Ross. But no, is the answer. Nothing. But then again, did she come to 2001? I can't remember. Madison Square Garden. She might have come to concerts. He was close to Diana Ross's son. Ross's son. I can't remember his name. I think his name is Ivan or something like that. I'm going back some time now, over 20 years. But no, I didn't used to see him together. Elizabeth Taylor, yeah, all the time on the phone, but not Diana Ross. I don't remember that. Whitney Houston, yeah, definitely. Whitney Houston, Britney Spears. Britney used to call a lot. He used to laugh. He used to say to me, this running joke, and because I kind of like blondes, and he used to say, I don't know if I can say on this podcast. Oh, what the hell? You could always edit it if you want. He's talking about Britney calling. He goes, "You like Britney, don't you?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, I'm gonna speak to her. You're gonna tap that ass." That's what he used to say, and he used to wind me up about it all the time. But she used to call him all the time, and like a mentor to her about her own musical career, her own childhood, and how things were going, and yeah. So I believe she wanted to be part of his record label at one stage. They did a duet together at Madison Square Gardens, "The Way You Make Me Feel." And her record label wouldn't let it be broadcast on TV, but you find it online. But she was always around. Daryl Hannah. David Blaine was around for a long period of time. Chris Tucker, great friend of his, right to the end. So he had people around, but not like you would expect. But I kind of understand in my own success, right? Like my own career, in my own sector, we've got the biggest chain of martial arts in the world. We're successful. I mean, how many friends have called me today? No one. Just my staff. I think the more successful you get, you kind of get busier, you get isolated, and people think, I'm not going to bother you. I remember when Michael turned 50, and I didn't call him, because I thought he'd get bombarded with phone calls from everyone all around the world saying, happy birthday, Michael, you know. So I didn't call him. When I saw him, when he announced the concerts in March 2009, a few months before he died, I said, oh, Mike, I didn't call you on your birthday because I didn't want you, because I knew you'd be getting hundreds of thousands, probably called people trying to ring you. I thought I'd leave you alone. He goes, oh, Matt, I didn't get anyone call me on my birthday. It was just me, my kids, and a birthday cake with a candle. He said, Mother called me on my birthday. That's it. No one called me. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think of it like that. Because they all thought the same thing, maybe. Let's not bother him. He's the biggest star in the world. I didn't call him. I remember saying to my ex-wife, God, I made a big mistake there. I didn't call the guy on his birthday. So he just celebrated a birthday on his own with his kids. His 50th. I know. Yeah.
I heard he had a crush on Beyonce.
Yeah, he loved Beyonce. He wanted to marry Beyonce. Beyonce or Princess Diana? He told me he would have married Princess Diana in a heartbeat. And they spent hours on the phone together. But Beyonce, yeah, whenever he was asked to be given an award, he would always say, well, if Beyonce gives it, then it's okay. And we heard that she was at a party, we would turn up. And in the hope that he would catch her, you know. And she used to call, she was a good friend of his. She used to call all the time. But yeah, he liked Beyonce a lot. It's kind of like hard to say now, but we went to a Puff Daddy party, right? But not a Puff Daddy party like a Puff Daddy party that people hearing this are going to think. We were there 5 minutes. And we turned up unannounced because we heard Beyonce was there in Vegas. And we were staying at the Palm Hotel. And we went there. And at first they didn't believe us that Michael Jackson was in the back of the car. And in the end, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever you want to come out. And he said, yeah, that's Mike. Come on in. We came on in. He sat down next to P. Diddy. And he said, is Beyonce here? She goes, oh, she's just left 5 minutes ago. He goes, ah. And he's like, Matt, Mark, let's go. And we left and we went. It's funny because P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, whatever, he went on one of your talk shows in America and said the same story, that he stayed for a party for 5 minutes. He asked for Beyonce, she went there and he went again. I couldn't believe it. But we didn't see any shady stuff going on. It was just night people dancing, drinking. There's no crazy stuff going on. We were only there like 5-10 minutes. I remember once we were going around the Houses of Parliament and he loved the Speaker's chair. So the Houses of Parliament is where you see in our government where they debate with the Prime Minister, and then you have the Speaker, a big green chair, which is thousands of years old, right? Very exclusive. And he had a private tour and we were all taken around it. And we get to the House of Parliament and he said, I want to buy that chair. And Lord Greville Janner, who's shown us around, said, oh, it's not for sale. And then Michael said, no, for me, everything's for sale. As if that you could buy it. He goes, no, you can't say that. And then he sat on the seat where the Prime Minister's seat and all the members of Parliament seat. He said, no, Michael, you need to get up. You can't sit there. Only Queens, Kings, and members of Parliament sit there. And he said, well, I'm the King of Pop. So for him, if there was another guy in the way or whatever, Jay-Z or Lisa Marie's ex-husband, I heard, that didn't bother him. He knew he was a flirt. Tito Jackson went on an interview, a podcast, and he said, if anyone asks me, is your brother a homosexual? I said, you go and send your wife to Neverland or girlfriend for 1 day and good luck. Watch what happens, because he'll charm the knickers off her. He was completely into women, completely. He said, you go, it's what Tito would say. You go and I dare you, go and send your wife, your girlfriend with Michael for 1 day or a couple of days and watch what happens. How charming he is. And, you know, it's not the real guy like he projects out to the public. He was a flirt. He used to call women fish. Bring that fish to my room. I want that fish. You know, that was his code for us to sneak the girls into his room. I stay in contact with his girlfriends to this day.
That debunks that lie about what he was into. So he was into women.
Yeah, just people are ignorant, Go on YouTube, type in Michael Jackson, maybe type in Michael Jackson looking at fish or something like that. I know it sounds ridiculous. And you'll see him in the back of the car because the footage is starting to make its way up there now. The movie's out. People are uploading stuff and it says, oh, look at that fish, look at her, bring her to my room and stuff. And yeah, I got footage like that too when I was sat next to him and he's pointing to this one and this one. And there was a couple in particular who stayed in relationships to him right until 2009, the way they would just turn up at the hotel and then we were allowed to let them straight in up to Michael's room. Or if they turned up at Neverland's gate, I don't know if you know where Neverland is, but it's a very secluded area. They'll turn up there, security would go crazy and we'll find out who it is. And he would, in the middle of the night, and he'll say, yeah, let her in, go get her. And she will stay there for weeks on end. I won't say how I'd contact her because they'll probably hack in. I was literally messaging her the other night trying to encourage her to speak out, but yeah, I don't know why they don't. I don't think anyone believes it. I remember the New York Post called me, or New York Times once, and after that hit piece, 2019 documentary, Leaving Neverland, and they caught me on the phone. I don't normally talk to media because they always twist things. And they said, Matt, what do you think of the documentary? I said, these guys are lying. You guys followed us everywhere with your cameras of paparazzi. You did not leave us alone. You know the girlfriends. And I named the girlfriends and how to find them. Because yeah, we know about her, we know about this one, but it goes against the narrative. So we're not interested. We want something juicy. That won't sell newspapers. I just put the phone down on them. That's what we were dealing with all the time. It was impossible. And Martin Bashir completely screwed Michael over. I mean, that was a chance to put everything right. I was one of 4 people, including Michael, in that hotel room when he was introduced to Martin Bashir. And Martin pitched Michael. And there was 3 people who wanted a documentary. Louis Theroux, you won't know of him. He's more of a UK-based... you might know of him now. He did a successful documentary series on Netflix that went massive called The Manosphere recently, based on the Andrew Tate kind of thing that's gone wild. Proving to be a man. It's gone wild. So he wanted the rights to the documentary. And there's a guy called Sir David Frost, who Michael met many times, very credible. And there was Martin Bashir, who would harass us all the time, trying to get to Michael. So anyway, we wanted to go with Sir David Frost. He wanted to meet Martin Bashir for one reason, that he made the documentary about Princess Diana after she split with Prince Charles. And she was seen as the bad cop, the bad person, and he cleaned up her image. Anyway, in the meeting, halfway through, Michael wasn't having any of it because Bashir was saying, we're going to focus on the dancing, your music, how you create songs. We're going to show people that you're not into young children, that you're into girls. We're going to interview your girlfriends. It's all going to kill out the myths about you. Why you create this mystery about you? Remember in the film, Michael says to John Branca, I want my life to be a mystery. I'm so glad they got that in because that's what he used to say to us. We went, Matt, remember when we go out there, my life's the biggest mystery on earth, the greatest show on earth. So I'm so glad that I got back to John Branca, or Michael would have said that to Branca, maybe that, no, don't stop this story. I wanted to think it's a mystery. I want it to be like Howard Hughes. And yeah, Bashir said all the right things, but Michael still wasn't buying it. It was like too good to be true. But then he reached his pocket and he got out this crumpled little note from headed paper from Princess Diana, Kensington Palace, saying, basically on the lines of, dear Martin, thank you so much for the documentary you did for me. It's cleared up my image and shown the truth. It's changed my life. As soon as Michael read that, because he was in love and friends with Diana, he said, okay, you've got the rights to this documentary to follow me around the world and come to Neverland and come to Havenhurst and make the documentary that you just told me. And we all walked out the room. We left Martin with Michael, and we thought Michael, being the superstar he is, would wrap him up, Martin, with legal contracts, because one of the discussions what Martin said is that we're going to give you edit control. So at the end of it, I'm going to fly to wherever you are and give you a VHS. It's VHS back then, tape copy. You watch it. Any bits you don't like, Michael, you change. And that sold it for Michael as well. So we went away, but from what I understand, no legal documents were ever put together. There was nothing, and he signed it. So when it went out, Michael called me, Yuri, and one other person in the meeting saying, can you do a witness statement for me fast? Because it went out in England first. And they went out in America a week later, and we did a witness statement about that meeting with Martin Bashir, all the lies he told, to try and get an injunction to stop the program being aired, because it was total nonsense. And it's now known that since that Martin Bashir, I don't know if you've heard of this in America, got took to court, and he conned Princess Diana with fake documents to get that Diana documentary made through her brother, with fake bank statements, fake doctors, to try and say that people around Diana she couldn't trust, and she needed to get this documentary out, otherwise her life was at risk and so on. So I wish they'd do that with Michael Jackson now. But Michael was clever. He had his own cameras running. And it's called Michael Jackson, the footage that you were never meant to see. It's on YouTube if people want to go and watch it. Unfortunately, Living with Michael Jackson got like 100 million viewers, whereas the positive documentary where he had his cameras, where Bashir would say, Neverland's a real bad place, you know, this is real bad for you, you know, and so forth. And then the real cameras also, Martin Bashir saying, this is so great how you've made this for the young children, and to help the Heal the World Foundation and Make-A-Wish Foundation. It brings tears to my eyes, Michael. But unfortunately, he didn't get the viewership like the initial documentary did. And Michael never really recovered from that. That was just devastating for him. And even, I know people who were there at the time. I don't know if you remember the bit where he's holding Gavin Avizo's hands, who went on to accuse him of child, and he leant on Michael's shoulder. Michael would never allow someone to do that. But the person who was there, I can't name them at the moment because they're in, but you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. They're involved with legal action where they're suing the estate for money. But this person told me, Matt, Bashir said to Michael, why don't you hold his hand? No one thinks you're a pedophile, especially if you're holding his hand on international TV. This is going to be huge, Michael. This is your chance to show them that you innocently want to help children. Then he'll say, Gavin, put your head on Michael's shoulder. This showed the world how nice, and Michael's got nothing to prove to anyone. Because no paedophile is going to go and hold a child's hand and have him lay on their shoulder, are they? And talk about sleeping in the bed. But Bashir, this guy tells me, who's relayed back, instructed him to do this. And it's on camera. But there you go. Public is starting to realise now, I think. The tide's turned. TJ Jackson, Tito's son, very cleverly put out a tweet, or an X, whatever you want to call it, the other day saying, mainstream media, you can no longer control the narrative. It's over for you. And it is. You cannot beat Hollywood. This movie, the next movie, the documentaries, the Netflix, it's over. The fans, the public has started to question things now. You know? They try their best, like the Epstein nonsense, that one picture. We were viewing houses, matey. A real estate agent lined up about 11 or 12 viewings that day. It was very boring as hell for me. On Palm Beach, because he wanted to be next to his best friend, Barry Gibb. They were recording music together, which one day I hope will be released, the Bee Gees album with Michael Jackson. And he wanted to be next to Barry Gibb. And he had a doctor who lived there as well in Miami. So he instructed an agent, can I view all mansions along Palm Beach? Epstein no longer didn't own the island at that point. We didn't know who Epstein was. He was not a name back in, this was 2003. No one knew who he was unless he was part of his financial world. So every house we went, the maids wanted a picture of Michael. The owners wanted a picture of Michael Jackson. They didn't know who was coming. We didn't know who this Epstein guy was. If you asked Michael today if he was alive, do you remember a guy called Jeffrey Epstein? He wouldn't have a clue. But he wanted a picture of Michael Jackson. And they tried, and it's funny how the American government, of all the millions of pictures they got in the Epstein files, they put the most famous man out in the world, that one picture, and then they doctor a picture of Diana Ross with her children and Michael's children to try and look like it with Epstein, to try and make it look like there's a connection there. Epstein had no idea, Michael had no idea who that guy was, any of those people we viewed houses for that day. But Epstein was trying to sell his house to buy the infamous island now. So it's all utter nonsense. And Michael did not try and protect kids away from Epstein, like the social media. I know the fans want to believe that and so on, but he didn't know who Epstein was. None of us did. He was an unknown person. If you asked anyone in 2003 or 2004, do you know Jeffrey Epstein would, they would know, the general public. He became famous because of what happened later with Prince Andrew. So, but maybe he was inadvertently trying to help by by helping underprivileged kids. I think there's about 20,000 kids were bused into Neverland per year and were financially looked after. Michael paid for their operations, their funerals and stuff. So maybe he did inadvertently help, but not because of Jeffrey Epstein. He would just do that for anyone, visit hospitals and stuff, pay for funerals. He didn't even know that he was behind it half the time. That's the kind of guy he was. But no, it's interesting how it works. I guess the media looked at the pictures and thought, well, this one will go viral. This will get us clickbait. Let's put Michael Epstein out. Bang. I went on Instagram in the end. I don't normally talk about it. I went on Instagram. It went completely viral. So guys, we're reviewing houses. Stop getting excited. That's all it was. A 10-second photo, handshake, gone. Next house.
When you was around Michael, did he ever speak about Prince?
No, we never. I think that was a media thing created, and he just played with it. With me, he never spoke about Prince, but I know for another bodyguard, he got convinced to go to Prince's concert in Las Vegas, and Prince sat on his lap with his guitar, and the light came on, and Michael was deeply embarrassed, and then he left. But he admired Prince. Actually, do you know what? One thing he did for me, I forgot. I took a chance. I heard, like you, that there's a rivalry between them. Prince did 21 nights at O2 Arena in London in a row, residency. That was the reason Michael wanted to do 50 nights, to get in the Guinness Book of Records and beat Prince's record. So it's like a comical rivalry. But I wanted tickets to go and watch Prince live because he didn't perform a lot, and he was awesome, fantastic musician. So I said to my ex-wife, so I'm going to ask Mike and see what, just what have I got to lose. So I got Michael on the phone, easy that day. I said, Michael, I don't know how it is with you and Prince, but any chance you get me tickets, I don't care where it is, to O2 Arena, to the opening night of Prince's concert, because I want to watch it, because my ex-wife was a big fan of hers too. And he's like, sure, consider it done. Leave it to me. Hour later, VIP tickets, front row, believe it or not, lights went down. Who comes and sits next to me? P. Diddy and his bodyguards. Yeah, all on the throw. Me and my ex-wife, Prince was right in our face. There must be some kind of friendship that I didn't know about, connection between them both. And they just played along with it.
He was a Biggie fan, right? Because I know he had him on the Invincible album, right?
Yeah, Michael paid for... yeah, you're right. There's a track where he uses... A big Biggie fan, yeah. He used to play his tracks all the time, but he wasn't around in my era. Obviously, he got shot years before. But yeah, when he met Biggie, I heard he was quite starstruck and I was a huge fan of his. But yeah, an Invincible album. He paid for some of his music, didn't he, to be used?
How was Michael's financial situation?
Yeah. I can tell you what I know was reported in court documents and what I understood to believe and what his people around me told me. So I know royalties were around 80 million a year from music catalogs. But then in the time I knew him, he didn't really work, might he? So there was the 2001 shows, which one of his brothers, well, Tito told me he got paid 5 million per show that David Guest organised, and the brothers got paid $1,000 each, and a couple of them didn't receive it for the reunion. I don't know if you remember that show. It was the last public show Michael ever did at Madison Square Gardens. He did 2 nights, the 8th of September and the 10th of September, just before 9/11. He woke up to that morning. In fact, had he not slept in, Michael would have been in the Twin Towers, handing the necklace back, had the plane hits. He might have been, or he might have sent his assistant there, but the deal was that he'd be photographed handing it back at the Twin Towers, but he overslept because he was up all night talking to his mum after the show. Yeah, sorry, what was the question again?
Michael financially. I heard you used to help him with his bills, right?
Oh, so sometimes me and the other bodyguards would have to pick up the bills, either accidentally or because his credit card wouldn't work. Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes I wouldn't bother asking him for the money. And other times it'd be silly things like we'd have to race, because, he shut down Hamley's toy stop. Let me start again. He shut down Hamley's toy store in London, which is the biggest toy store in London, equivalent to the one that you've got in New York. Huge, on 5 floors, in the middle of the night. For me, my ex-wife, and my stepsons to shop in peace. And he wanted to buy stuff for his children too. And we're walking around, and then it gets messy. Outside we hear there's paparazzi like crazy. The fans that worked out were in there. And if we don't go soon, it'll get dangerous. And since 9/11, the police won't longer help you unless you're royalty. So we had to weigh up. So we came up with this plan to get out quick. But yeah, I ended up picking up the bill on my card because I was last out. Once I got Michael in the car, I was last out and we went. And but yeah, he always paid it back and stuff. But sometimes hotel suites and stuff, I would pick up the bill. And not just me, other friends and bodyguards too. So he was cash poor but asset rich. He was asset rich over $1 billion in equity, but the loans that he was borrowing against his assets were getting out of control. There's some bad financial advisors. I think in my era, over 10 years of being his bodyguard and friend, he went through about 12 different managers and loans, interest rates. It was a mess. And the only real asset he had was the Beatles catalogue, which you couldn't use anymore, I don't believe, and Neverland, which was mortgaged as high as you possibly could, and he had to sell that in the end. But he didn't want to go back there in the end anyway, because it was always, he got advised legally not to go back there, and he didn't feel right after it was raided in 2003. It was no longer a home for him. So yeah, financially, things were bad. That's why he took on the 50 shows. He didn't ever want to do a moonwalk past 50 years old. That's what he used to tell us. But he was going to do 50 shows and then do it in Paris as well. This is it. And do it in Sydney. And then he wanted to be a movie director. And you know, when I sat down with him for the last time, he was eating fish and chips on the Thursday night. He just went to watch Oliver Twist with Mark Lester. He thought it'd be quite funny to watch Oliver Twist with Oliver, the man who played the original guy. And then Mark called me, said, listen, he's flying out tomorrow. Why don't you come and see him? And I'm so glad I did. So we had his favourite meal, fish and chips. We sat on the floor and we talked about everything and stuff. And he just said, you know, I can't believe we've sold out 50 dates. They told me I could sell out 100 dates, but I'm going to stop at 52 dates, I think it was. But my dream is, I just want to stop my children living in hotels now. It needs to come to an end. I want to be able to buy a home for us. And I was thinking, God, I think he earned like 7 billion, 8 billion in his lifetime. It was proven in the court case, yeah, 2004. And for him to have his biggest dream, to buy a mansion for his children to live in with him, so they don't have to live out hotel rooms anymore. I thought, wow, that's so sad, you know? You should have achieved this years ago. But people are just milking him for money, ripping him off, selling stories and just ripping him off. And I asked him once, where's the money gone? He just said, I don't know, that's an accountant's question. I asked that to his brothers too, because the brothers had situations too. And they said, I don't know. I said, where's the Jackson 5 money gone? Where's the Jackson's money gone? I don't know, Matt. That's for the accountants to answer for. We must have generated hundreds of millions of dollars, but got no idea. Michael would blame his record label. He said on stage that when I stood next to him that I've generated billions and billions for Sony and I've got nothing to show for it. And that he talked with James Brown towards he died. And James Brown had to perform right up to the end. And he said most artists die broke. And sadly, it's well known Michael died $500 million in debt. And he's now billions of dollars in credit.
So how was he supporting his lifestyle?
When you're that famous, you a bit like the social media age now, like you can say, I want to go on holiday, but I'm a star, I've got 1 million followers. I will blog my Instagram stories to stay at your place if you give me a free holiday. So back then, if you're Michael Jackson, he knew the value his brand would bring to the hotel, that it'll always be known that Michael Jackson stayed here. The media would camp out outside. So his people would barter with them to say, Michael will come and stay at your hotel if you give the hotel presidential suite to him free for a couple of weeks. It didn't work every time, but it worked 90% of the time. In Manhattan one time, we had 4 presidential suites on the go at the same time. Just in case it got recognized, we'll go to the next one. And yeah, so he would barter. He'd also, things were loaned to him or given to him. Like I'll be with him where phone calls will come in saying the latest Mercedes has come out. Would Mr. Jackson like one? And I said, Michael, would you like the latest Mercedes? He'd say, is it free? He said, yeah, they're hoping you're going to drive it and get papped in it. He goes, yeah, it's time to send it to Neverland. So yeah, you can send it to Neverland Ranch. And I'll give them the address and they'll send cars there and Bentleys there and stuff like that. Yeah, different world.
Could Michael fight?
Oh yeah, we didn't cover this. So one of the reasons Michael wanted to meet me is because Joe Jackson wanted to make sure all his boys were tough and that they could defend themselves. and look after themselves. So he made sure they all trained in martial arts. So they've all got to black belt level. So Michael wanted to meet me, having conversations with Uri Geller, and Uri Geller must have said, listen, I know the guy who's got the biggest martial arts school in the world. And he's a multi-millionaire. He won't want anything from you, and you can trust this guy. And him and Mark Lester were black belts, his best friend. So the first conversations that we had was, can you train me and Mark to second degree black belt? I said, sure we can, Mike, no problem. We couldn't do it at my martial arts school, of course, it'd be ridiculous. So we used to pull the tables apart in hotel suites, or in the middle of the night go to the aerobic studio, and we continued the training. Yeah, but man, he could kick. And Will Smith once said, when he did a cameo in Men in Black 2, Michael was doing spinning kicks above his head. You can see it in his dancing. If you watch Michael's dancing, he's doing the Bruce Lee, he copies the Bruce Lee stuff. And he used to say, copy the greats and make it better. So he'll take the stuff of Fred Astaire, Bruce Lee, James Brown, and put it all together, Charlie Chaplin. And you see him do the Bruce Lee moves, you know, and stuff. And yeah, he could fight. Tito used to come to my classes and fight. I tried to get Tito's fitness back on track as much as I could. There's footage online about that too. People can watch him in my martial arts classes. But yeah, Michael, I remember one time I grabbed his arm because we were in a paparazzi scrum, a real serious one. And the fans were there. And this was back in the day when media was so big that you're talking 100 cameras trying to get that face shot of Michael in his face. And one of the fans, I remember it really clearly, said, there's a newspaper in England called the Daily Mirror, and they wrote a very terrible article about Michael, completely fabricated, untrue. And one of the fans that Michael was aware of and believed said, Michael, that's the reporter there who's taking photos of you that wrote an article about you in the Daily Mirror. And he said, that's him? He goes, yeah. And then Michael swung his arm back, and this is on footage, and he went to punch him. I grabbed his arm like that, and I said, Michael, don't do it. This will be worldwide news. It will be terrible for your image. They will arrest you. They won't treat you like a normal person. You'll be in jail for hours. They'll charge you. Don't do it. It's not worth it. And when we got on the train, he said, thanks for stopping me punch that guy. I don't know what I was thinking. But he was so mad. He was going to punch the guy. I mean, Michael was a strong guy. He had the Joe Jackson side of Michael Jackson, then he had the Catherine side, the Karen side. Where Michael wanted to be ruthless, he was ruthless. He wouldn't take no messing around. He would not take no messing around. When he put those glasses on, just ready for business, he was ready. I always say to people when they think, oh, Wacko Jacko, he's a clown. You don't get to be the most famous man in the world for all those years, record album after record album, sell out stadiums without social media, if you're stupid. He had an intelligence above another level, which made him different to us. He was an absolute genius. And not just with music, with art as well. When he died, they found this bunker, which we knew about, his escapism. He had an artist mentor. And when he wants some peace and quiet, he used to go to this air bunker, hidden away, and he used to draw and get coached on drawing. And they opened it up and he found millions and millions of pounds worth of drawings that Michael Jackson had done, which had been incredible, you know. The film, it showed how he drew, how he wanted his face to be. He was just, everything had to be perfected.
Let me ask you this, right? Where do you think all this is coming from? People targeting Michael? Because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I never heard him do anything to nobody.
And he used to say that. He used to say, why me? He said, do you know how many people, Matt, have got vitiligo in the world? He said, he used to say it on the TV as well. How many people lay in the sun all day to make themselves brown or black? And they have a go at me because I've got a skin problem and I've gone white. They don't attack them. He said, everything seems to be okay unless it's Michael Jackson doing it. And yeah, you're right. He got investigated by the FBI for 15 years. They bugged his phones. They bugged his rooms. They followed him without him knowing. Zero evidence whatsoever. He got tried in 2004 under the most vicious district attorney. He tried to get him in 1993, but the accuser refused to bring criminal charges. And the law got changed because of Michael Jackson, because he got his money and they changed the law. So you got to do criminal case, then you can go after the money. Scrutinized under District Attorney Tom Sneddon, the same legal team, the same people that represented Jordan Chandler. and they failed with 14 counts of child molestation and all different other things that are thrown in there to try and make one of those stick. He would have gone to jail. They could not get him. But Michael used to say the bigger the star, the bigger the target. And he was the biggest, most powerful person in the world. They took him down. And yeah, he used to go back to the publishing. He owned half of Sony Music. And he was very powerful. He used to say, if I told every black American to overturn cars in protest because I disagree with this, they would all do it for me. And I believe that's true. I believe he had that influence. Well, politicians used to call and try and get him to the White House. And he wouldn't go because in later years, because he knew it would clean up their image if he would go. You know, I'll just tell you, it doesn't matter. President Clinton tried to get him to the White House, and he called us to speak to Uri Geller to say, do you think it's a good idea? It was just after the Monica Lewinsky thing. And because I don't really want to be attached to that, Michael said, you know. And he decided not to go to the White House. But he went to the White House when Ronald Reagan presented him. But he'd only got one condition, that I'll come to the White House, but I know Mr. Reagan, President Reagan, a lot's in this for you, my profile. So if you present me with an award, then I'll go. And they gave him an award and he went. So he always made sure there was something in it for him. He was a marketing genius. But yeah, where does the attack come from? Mainstream media. So when the movie was released in the UK, all the critics, it was like cut and paste, like a smear campaign. And it's like literally everyone was the same. Dreadful, awful, terrible. When I actually went to watch it, I was like, they must have watched a different movie to what I watched. I don't understand it. And then the Rotten Tomatoes thing, the review thing platform gave it like a 28% review. I think it's up to 98% review. Now it's the biggest movie, set to be the biggest movie of all time, biggest movie in the world right now. His #1 album in the charts because they've released a soundtrack album off the back of it. And he's dominating the first 10 singles of the charts in the UK charts. I don't know how it is in America, but he's literally dominating around the world. And they're making a second beat. They got their money back in the first 2 weeks. I think they spent 220 million on it. I think it's 750, 800 million. It's going to be past the $1 billion mark soon.
The Casio family, this is a family that Michael considered family. And after he died, they sued him. What's the deal with them, man?
Okay, I'll be careful how I answer this because obviously legal action is in process. And I know what your litigious country of America is. But yeah, the Casio family were the closest family to Michael Jackson. He said to me, Frank Casio was Michael's manager from 2000 to 2000 and maybe the beginning of 2002. And then Eddie Casio was kind of like an assistant. So Frank has grown up, lived in New Jersey. So Frank's dad was head of VIP section at one of the hotels in New York, Manhattan. So when Michael came to stay there, he built a friendship with him and then invited him around when a baby was born to their house in New Jersey. And they formed this long time friendship. I think they had 5 kids in total. And when Michael wanted some normal family time, he'd just go and hang out with them. After 9/11, for instance, he went and hanged out with them for a couple of months. And they were like, Michael used to refer to them as a second family. Now, I only know Frank and Eddie, but Frank I knew the most because I shared a hotel suite with him in 2001. And he was Michael's manager, so I had to ring him sometimes to get Michael to ring me back and so forth. So yeah, ironically, in 2019, they were hinting at that Michael had molested all 5 of them, including the daughter, which we've never heard this before because the narrative's always been little boys. Now it's the daughter too. So they got a lot of pictures and videos of Michael, which the estate would like. And it's true, they were very, very close to them. I mean, these were like brothers to Michael. So they did this agreement in 2019. I've not read it. It's like a consultancy agreement where they buy the rights to the family's knowledge of Michael. And they paid not to shut down any allegations, but they paid for some footage that maybe the estate wanted, but I don't know the detail of it. But it was not a payoff for abuse or anything like that. There was maybe a hint that this family was so damn powerful in terms of their closeness to Michael, having been with him for 30 years, literally, that they could be of danger and could stop the movie. So a lot of the fans think the movie was commissioned back then, the Michael movie, that maybe they saw the pound signs. And this family lived off Michael. Assistants, manager, they lived off him. So when he died, that all stopped. And in 2018, I don't know why the media don't report this because I think it's quite relevant. There was an album come out called Michael. When they bring Michael out, unheard tracks that were made at the Casio family's house in New York, in New Jersey, in their studio, and Eddie Casio was producer. And it came out, I think it was called Michael. And the fans were unhappy with 4 tracks, saying it's not Michael. And those fans are very clever at getting out the truth. And they brought it to the estate's attention. And they used equipment and stuff, and they realized, the Casio family, it seemed like they faked 4 tracks. It was not Michael's voice. So they had to remove those 4 tracks off Eddie Casio's album. And I think they brought a legal case against Eddie Casio. Now that should be mentioned in these TV programs, documentaries about them now bringing, all 5 of them bringing, I think the lawsuit's about $250 million against his state. What a coincidence. They're waiting for the movie to be released before the documentary comes out. You know, they've always denied, they've always been defenders of him throughout all the trials, even the 1993 one, which didn't go to trial. You know, they've always been there for him. And in these documentaries, they mention that this family, all 5 of them didn't speak to each other. Then all of a sudden, after watching the 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland, they all remembered they were abused as well. And they all talked to each other, and they didn't speak to each other about it. And they all had the same story, basically. They just never spoke to each other about it. Very, very strange story. And they brought a claim against Michael, I think it was last year, I believe, for about $250 million. And I think it was hard to deal with because I guess movie producers, Universal, have put $220 million into this movie. I think, is this going to screw the movie up? You know, and maybe the Casios thought they're going to have to pay us off because they're not going to want this blockbuster movie being, because anything Michael does turns to gold. So, but this time they refuse to do it. They are suing for extortion, and they're fighting them. And fighting them off because this is such a ridiculous claim. I can tell you something. I spent time with Frank. Frank had his own bedroom. Michael slept alone. We'd have to wake Michael up in the morning because he's always late for things. There was none of this that they're making up. Eddie worked for Michael. I think the fact that Eddie got disproven on making fake Michael Jackson tracks on an album and release it to the world to buy, that should discount this claim altogether. And they should feature it, but they cleverly edit it out. That's how mainstream media work. So all this hate and all this stuff, it's all generated by mainstream media. Negative media sells, positive don't. If I want something viral to go on my Instagram, if I put something out controversial at work, you put positive stuff out and something never happens. When we heard the Casios, when I first heard the Casios brought this claim against Michael, I called Mark Lester, Michael's closest friend, the godfather to Michael's children. I called him up on loudspeaker in my car next to my wife. We were driving in the UK. And I said, Mark, have you heard Frank Casio and his family are bringing a claim against Michael for over $200 million? And he goes, this is ridiculous. He said, you know what, Matt, I don't know why we bother defending him anymore. We might as well have just brought out a claim ourselves and said he abused us. They just need to pay everyone off. This is getting out of hand now. But luckily now, they're being fought, and this time they're not going to win. It's just outrageous, stupid claim. I mean, this is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. But this is what Michael's not here to defend himself no more. And I don't think they realised this movie. I think they'd hoped it'd be over by now, and they would have been paid off by now. But this movie is like, people have changed their opinion about Michael Jackson now. They really have. The next generation have watched it, the stories they've heard, and they've seen what he's had to deal with since Jackson 5. The effect of discipline on you in Gary, Indiana. You know, I think the Americans probably understand this in Chicago more than anyone else back in the 60s. And how my grandfather, he was 98 when he passed away a few years ago, he said to me, Matt, when we were at school in England, when we did anything wrong, they used to cane our hands. That's how it used to be, you know. I'm not justifying what Joe Jackson did, but if Joe Jackson did that in today's day, American law, UK law, he'd be jailed. You know, you can't smack your kids anymore in the UK. You be careful how you tell them off. I don't believe in smacking your kids anyway. I've got 6 children. They've never once been smacked by me. I don't believe in that. I think that just shows the kid it's okay. If your parents hit you, then it's okay for them to hit other kids. You know, because they should look up to you. But it was different back then. I was about prevention against crime. So yeah, the Casios, in my view, is an outrageous claim for money. No one's believing it. They're laughing at it. The fans are laughing at it. And that'll just be laughed out of court.
Yeah, I think that's disgusting, man. A family he had a lot of love for, dragging his name through the mud like that, man.
He would be so upset. Man, you got no idea. So upset. But there you go. People like Macaulay Culkin have stayed genuine to him, eh? And do you know one thing people should realise? The rich people don't accuse him of molestation. The rich kids around him, it's always the broke ones, isn't it? It's always the ones who are filing for bankruptcy or got money trouble. If you go and look at the people who, so 93, that guy approached Michael with, he wanted so many million to make 5 million, to make 5 movies, right? And Michael said he didn't want to fund it, he didn't want to get into that. Then he brought the claim against him, civil claim. Michael said, no, I want to go to court. But he couldn't go to court. He had to wait for them to arrest him so that he could do a criminal case to go to court, because the way the American law was back then. So Michael said, and the insurance people, they was in the middle of the Dangerous tour, said, no, Michael, I'm sorry, we have the power to, I know you want to fight this, but you're halfway through the Dangerous tour. We can't pause this for something which might take 2 years for a civil trial for you to win this and wait for them to come and arrest you for a criminal trial. We can't do it. We've got the rights to overpower you. So the insurance company said, I think it was like 20 million. This is 20 million. We've got billions at stake here. Sold out stadiums all around the world. 2 747 jets of equipment. Hundreds of staff. Let's get rid of this. And when they bring the criminal charges against you, then fight them off like you want to. Because he was like, his friends tell me, adamant he wanted to fight this. Then go have your day in court. Then sue them for extortion and get your civil claim back and pay us back. He had no choice. They wanted him back on the road, the money-making machine. That's the truth. Michael Jackson never paid them off. The insurance company did, went against his wishes. Now, problem he had, Michael was waiting for a criminal trial. He was waiting to be handcuffed to fight. They never brought it to him. So that Tom Sneddon, that district attorney, was on that Geordie Chandler's case. Come on. And Evan Chandler, bring a case against Michael for criminal. You got your money now, come on. He refused to do it. He's happy with the, oh, I don't know if you got any kids, Miney, but I got 6 kids. Anyone abused one of my kids, I wouldn't tell you on air what I would do to them, but I want them dead or in jail for the rest of their life. Put it that way. I certainly want $20 million would not solve the issue for me. You know, they refused to bring a case. And interestingly, what happened after that, Jordan Chandler, legally, you can't do it in England, but in America you can. He legally divorced his parents. And then when Michael died in 2009, a few weeks after, Evan Chandler's dad shot himself in the head because he heard that Jordan was going to tell Mrs. Jackson the truth, that his dad made it all up and made him do it. He killed himself. Go look at it, it's on public record. Killed himself. Evan Chandler is dead a few weeks after Michael died. There's no coincidence to that. And June Chandler never heard from her son ever again because they called her to give evidence in the trial. She said, I can't help you. Geordie divorced me. I don't know where he is. And yeah, because Jordan, you know, I'm hoping one day this may happen. This may well happen in the next year or two that we're going to see. Because the only reason the allegations aren't covered in the movie is that Michael signed the document, the settlement agreement, saying that the allegations 93 cannot be dramatized and the name Jordan Chandler cannot be mentioned. So I wonder now, or maybe I'm hearing now, negotiations are being made that Jordan wants this out, finished and done with, and that they will cover this head on.
Is it any way they can be stopped? Because you already know when a part 2 come out, they're gonna be right back trying to sue the estate.
You can't, in the UK, I don't know, America I believe it's the same, you cannot defame a dead person. You can say whatever you want and they can't defend themselves. There's a few countries in the world that it's illegal, so you don't get this stuff. But all the rich people that die now, we see a pattern, especially in the UK, they all, billionaires, multimillionaires, famous people, they die, then all these allegations are brought, or they're just about to die, or they're getting elderly. And it's things that happened 30 years ago and the people can't even remember their names, you know. But yeah, Michael was what we describe as the first Me Too case for his victim, the easy one to go after because he's the biggest star in the world. But also too, do you know what surprised me about Michael Jackson and the Jackson family? They used to tell me how the racism that they received. I didn't believe it until I went and hung out with Tito, Jermaine, and Catherine Jackson for 3 or 4 weeks, a month or so, and we'd drive around and they would shout racial. Yeah, I experienced the racial abuse against them because of their success. I couldn't believe it. I didn't think that was going on in California, but yeah, it was shocking to see. But yeah, Michael believed the district attorney was seriously racist against him and had a vendetta, and I certainly saw evidence to that. Absolutely, but will it ever stop? I think it's over now. I think after the Casio case is over, it's done. People know they're going to lose. They need the mainstream media support to convince the jury. Jury aren't buying this nonsense anymore. They're seeing the real Michael now through the movie. They're seeing what he's like. They're seeing what he's done. They're getting it. What he suffered. What he endured with Joseph. You know, and I don't think he'd want Joe to be portrayed the way he would. He would put a stop to that. Absolutely, because he believed that if it weren't for Joe, there'd be no Michael Jackson. There'd be no Jackson 5. You probably wouldn't mind him covering the bit in the beginning, but not like the way it was. I was shocked when I saw the beating being on the movie. I mean, I was like, whoa, Michael would never want that. No way. A lighter version of that maybe, but not like it was. No way would he want that. And not at the end too. You know, where the story's hung on Joe Jackson. But Joe's dead. He can't be defamed. At the end of the day, it's just a movie. That's what you got to look at. It's a movie. Some bits have been fabricated or dramatized, and they couldn't address the issues they really wanted to due to this agreement he signed in '93. But I believe the next one, watch out, they're going to go for it. Or they could take the easy way out. The last public event he ever did was with me, funny enough, where they called me the Umbrella Man. And he wanted to raise money for HIV and AIDS. And the Michael Jackson estate tweeted this out. So this might be an indication or a hint of what's coming. They might be in the movie. They might have someone playing me with a ponytail. Hopefully he'd be a very handsome person. I don't know. But 2002 was quite a pivotal year. We did lots of public events that year. There was no controversy. 93 was way behind us, and the 2004 case hadn't happened. The baby dangling incident hadn't happened yet. So in Exeter, in the UK, which is about a 40-minute drive from here, football stadium, we sold out the stadium to raise money for HIV and AIDS. Michael did the most amazing speech about people loving the world, war in the world. And if they end it there, I'm not saying because I want to be in the movie, I couldn't care less. It probably caused me more trouble than what it's worth. But if they end it there, then they don't have to address 2004 allegations. They don't have to address drug allegations. They don't have to really address his death, which is difficult because I believe Dr. Conrad Murray, that went into jail for manslaughter and served 2 years, is appealing his convictions. I don't believe they can cover that in detail either. They can address it, maybe throw some words on the screen. Sadly, Michael Jackson passed in 2009, just like they did with the Freddie Mercury documentary. And these are the same people that made the Freddie Mercury documentary. So if they cut it in 2002, so the Michael Jackson estate, I might put it on my Instagram later when you air this, they tweeted, they Facebooked, they did all their social media accounts, a picture of me holding an umbrella of Michael Jackson and said about the HIV and AIDS thing. That was the most positive time we had. Everything else after that was controversial. Every other public appearance. There was nothing else after that. After that was Baby Dangling, Berlin. They're not going to want to cover that and open that door. They're not going to want to cover the Bashir documentary. So I believe they're going to end it in 2002. Unless they can sort something out with Geordie Chandler, they're going to end it there and not go there. And do you know what? From my point of view, I thought about it long and hard. I'm a businessman, entrepreneur. The estate's job is to make the Michael Jackson estate, the beneficiaries are his children, is to make them as much money as they possibly can. Why bother covering the allegations when he was found not guilty of 14 counts? Why bother covering 93 when they can't legally because he signed something? And it was the insurance company that paid it off. And there was no criminal convictions against him. Why bother covering it when the FBI investigated him for 15 years? There's no story there anymore. The media, the public are sick and tired of it. They're not buying it anymore. So if they cut it in 2002, I think they got themselves a very good part where they can cover the bad, songs, the making of his music, Dangerous Tour, what's the next one? History Tour, and maybe his unhappiness with Invincible and how that performed, and the loneliness, and then finish it where he raised serious money for HIV and AIDS and showed the humanitarian of Michael Jackson, which hasn't been really shown enough yet. And then it shows him holding the umbrella with his son and so forth. I think that's where it should end, personally. If I was a business person and I wanted to generate money for the estate, that's what I would do. I would not go and ruin all the goodness that this movie's done. And why do that? It makes no business sense, does it? And they are a business. They are Michael Jackson. Look at it like that. What would Michael Jackson do? If I asked him the question, he probably would say he'd want to clear the allegations and show how he was stitched up and framed. And there's enough evidence to prove that, by the way. There's tapes and audio stuff of, we're going to get him. We're going to get him big time. You know, apparently Jordan was given a drug that he would just go along with it when he was given evidence because his dad was a dentist. There's a famous YouTuber out there, Candace Owens, done a wonderful piece on it. People should go and check it out. She ain't scared of controversy, is she? She's an amazing thing. But yeah, I think they've got two choices. They either hit this head on or they end it mid-2022. Sorry, 2002. And then they've got themselves a good second part. And it will appeal to the fans. The media won't like it. But we've covered the allegations. We've done all that. He's been to court. He suffered. He nearly died. I'm amazed he survived the trial, which went on for 6 months. You know, it's been done. The FBI have done their bit. It's over now. Let's just focus on the genius, the man who raised money for charities, and how did he make all the music and the dances. And that's what the public want to see now. They've had enough of it now. They don't believe in it anymore. It's BS. Now stars are getting accused of this nonsense now for something they say did 30 years ago. They can't even remember the girl. You know, there needs to be a law in place that maybe after 5 years, if they haven't brought a case, they can't come after you. Or if the accused has failed to find him guilty, then they should be found guilty of extortion. That's what should happen. I really believe that, you know, and I think that'll happen one day. Look at Russell Brand's going. I don't know Russell Brand. I don't know if you know if he's famous in America or not. Russell Brand, the comedian, done some movie stars. He's been accused of something, I believe, that he did in 1994 or something. How the hell is he supposed to remember? We're a 16-year-old. The legal age of consent in the UK, it's different to America. It's 16 over here. Yeah, we're a 16-year-old. He can't remember. He's going to trial in July. He could face going to prison, and he can't be treated like a normal guy. He's one of the most famous men in the UK. You know, he's cancelled from all his platforms as well, and he's not going to get a fair trial. How's he supposed to remember? You know, it's just mad how the world's gone. But there you are.
Was you around Michael when he had the balcony incident?
Yeah, well, I mean, from our point of view, initially, we were just hanging out. He was there for the Bambi Awards. Myself, Mark Lester, we had our own hotel rooms there, just keeping him company. There was maybe 1,000 fans outside and media. Okay, Martin Bashir was filming. I didn't realise filming was going to start so quick. So we thought legals must have took away, he was filming. Bashir didn't really communicate with me much, or Mark, or any of us. It was just Michael. I'm trying to say it in a way that there's going to be no defamation, but there was a medical personnel there. I don't know what went on, but Michael went away with a doctor, basically, with Bashir, and then he came back and he was very high. He used to take a drug before he would dance called ephedrine, which is not normal, okay? Last phone call I had with him, he said he took a drug called ephedrine. He would speak fast. Bodybuilders would take it. It helps you get that extra 20% on stage or in a workout. It's like the next level from caffeine. The downside to ephedrine, it's appetite suppressant and so on. It gives you tremors and things. So when you go back and look at that Living with Michael Jackson documentary, you'll see where he's got a blanket on his knee and he's like, blanket, blanket, blanket. And he's not right, you know. That's the effect ephedrine to give you. That was probably minutes before the balcony incident. So Bashir said, can you go and show Prince, the older son, to the crowd? Because they're all chanting for him. And he's like, sure. You think it's safe? He goes, sure. And me and Mark, I'm not a bodyguard role by this point. I'm just started as a friend with Mark. So he goes out on the balcony and he takes Prince in Paris and shows the fans. And then they screamed. That was it. He comes back in. And he puts a curtain over their face. And we just thought it was a nice thing for him to do. Then they were shouting for the baby. And I think Mine Bashir saw an opportunity here because there's a bit of a delay. Now, if you look at the one picture that went around the world, it makes Michael Jackson look like a complete maniac, where he's holding a blanket over the balcony with his face like this, like he's crazy. So Mine Bashir said, listen, they're chanting for the baby, Michael. Why don't you go and show the baby? He goes, oh, I'm not sure. Might scare the baby, be terrified. He goes, no, go do it. But Michael was in his right frame of mind. He was on Ephedrine or whatever the doctor had given him. I got no, or whatever he took himself. I got no idea. He gave in to Bashir. I think Bashir planted a photographer out there because there's no way anyone knew this was coming. The perfect shot, the perfect angle, showed him as a crazy man. He went out there for a few seconds, dangled the baby, came back in, shut the doors. Me and Mark didn't really think much of it because we weren't privy to how it looked outside. We had no idea. So Michael used to always go to balconies to wave at fans. So we just carried on conversation. And then fans, the media presence would grow. Helicopters were going over. And Michael thought, wow, they love my kids. We put German TV on, and Germany said, Michael Jackson shows his baby to the world. Very different narrative to the around the world tabloid stuff. Then America called and spoke to one of the other guards and said, do not let Mr. Jackson see any of the American TV. We got a crisis on our hands. That Michael Jackson nearly dangled and killed his baby by throwing him off the balcony. That's what they were saying. And anyway, they had to break the news to him in the end. He locked himself away in the room and yeah, after he realised that he did something wrong. He apologised and yeah, that was that. I remember when we came through London on the way back, we went past Hyde Park, a very famous park. We had tinted windows in our limo, and there was a dad throwing his kid up in the air as high as he can, and then catching him, and then throwing him high as he can. And then Michael wasn't trying to justify it. He just said, Matt, if that was me, Michael Jackson doing that, I'd be all over world news. That's abuse to my child. That I'm trying to kill my baby. You know, but yeah, he apologised for that. He knew he did something wrong. But for Bashir, that was gold footage for him. And it was too much of a coincidence to all happen naturally. The cameraman outside, you know, it was, and Bashir being there. Bashir was clever, manipulating. We know that, what happened with Princess Diana, how he manipulated the way into her world and convinced her to do a documentary. He was clever how he manipulated us with the Diana note. So that's my theory and his friend's theory. That was all staged and done. And the doctor and him became quite close. And who knows? We'll never know. We'll never know.
How did Michael deal with that emotionally, with all the backlash he was getting from that balcony incident?
Absolutely horrendous. I mean, I wasn't privy to access to him. I stayed away. I went back to my room. But child authorities got involved. The American media were just crucifying him. UK media were crucifying him. I can't remember. It's a long time ago now. This was 2002. But I believe the authorities did a welfare check at the hotel on the kids. I can't remember exactly, but I believe that happened. But yeah, I just stayed out of the way. I just stayed out of the way. The concern for us is, was he going to be well enough to attend the Bambi Awards, you know, the day after? But he did it. He did attend it. But yeah, it was a long time ago now, maybe 25 years ago. So, but yeah, we didn't think it was going to be like that. But it was wrong. As a parent, it was wrong to do. But bear in mind, my friend was medicated. I'm not justifying it, but when you're on medication like he was given, which has been proven to given out because he died of that medication, it was found in his blood. Ephedrine was found in his blood. When he did the last rehearsal that night and he came home, he had ephedrine in his blood. He had downers and uppers in his blood at the same time. So, so yeah.
Before we end the interview, I want to ask you, how did you find out that Michael Jackson passed away? And I heard that he called you like 2 days before he passed away, right, for help?
He got through to me, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I get in from my office. I do my usual routine. I had, by that point, I had 2 babies. Well, one was nearly 8 years old, and the other a couple of years old. One of them used to speak to Michael all the time on the phone, Madison. So I get in, Madison runs to me when Daddy's back from work. I sit on the sofa, put the TV on. It was just a normal day, if I'm honest with you. It was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I remember because my wife was finished cooking and she was on the phone to her sister. And this is more like a landline era where you'd ring people on landlines, you know. And anyway, this particular, we're talking about when Michael called me for the last time here now. So he calls. I never used to answer the phone just in case it's media. That was a rule of thumb in my house in my first marriage when Michael was alive. Because if media catch you, they misquote you. So my ex-wife would answer the phone. And it was Michael. And he wanted to speak to me. And I spoke to him. He didn't sound himself. He sounded completely out of it. High as a kite, speaking really fast. So I just said to him, Michael, well, have you taken something? Yeah, the doctor's given me ephedrine because they say if I don't get the rehearsals right tonight, they're going to pull the plug. And I'm going to owe them all this money. They're going to sue me. And, oh man, Matt, they treat me so bad. I don't know what to do. I need to get hold of Joseph. Do you know where Joseph is? I've not got my numbers. He managed to get my number for another bodyguard who they kept on, who had some numbers, who we were associated to. He said, and he normally called us to get numbers anyway. He couldn't call his normal people because they were blocked out. His normal assistants are gone. AEG took on their own staff, their own bodyguards. So he said, do you know where Joseph is? I do. Do you have his number? I said, I do have his number. Here it is. I told him his number. And I thought to myself, he's asking for Joe. This is strange. I said, Mike, is everything okay? He goes, no. I need Joseph to come and sort this shit out. That's the exact words he said. He said, it's a shit show. They're threatening me. They're making me rehearse songs and dances that I developed over 30 years ago. I can't go on like this. And they are controlling me. He didn't really know where he was. And then he asked if I can come to Los Angeles and help. And I just had a baby. So I said, I don't see why there's any point when I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks at the O2 Arena. And we were going to be living together, me, Mark Lester's kids and his kids. And we were going to keep the doctors at bay, make sure he eats. The shows were paced one night after each other with a day in between. So we can make sure we stay strong. So I said, Mike, I can't just drop everything and come out. You know, I was going for a bad marriage patch as it was at the time. Then he asked for Mark Lester's number. I gave him Mark's number. Then he asked to speak to Madison. He spoke to Madison. They had a good conversation. And then he tried to speak to Lola, best he can, in goo goo gaga toddler language. Come back on the phone to me. And he just said, I love you. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you. I'm going to call Joseph right now. And I'm going to call Mark and see if Mark will come out. And then that was the last I ever heard from him. And then it turned out he did call Mark straight away, but Mark was a single dad of 4 kids. He asked Mark, could he come out? Mark said the same thing, he couldn't come out. And we found it hard to get to Michael at this point. So I also found, even if I did fly out there, I wouldn't get past AEG's wall of security. They wouldn't let me in because I would be in his ear. Because I knew family members were trying to get to him. They couldn't even get past AEG's wall of security. And Joseph was trying to get to him as well. Because Joseph was hearing bad things were going on, you know. And anyway, it turns out, and fans can see this if they go and watch Piers Morgan's show, Joe admits that Michael calls him, but leaves an answer phone message. But Joe didn't pick it up until the Thursday after Michael passed away by that point. But Joe would have gone in there with a shotgun, man. He wouldn't have cared. He couldn't care less. So that was the last phone call. How I found out he died is I come back from work and a little early, about 3:30 in the afternoon. And then Uri Geller calls me. He's like the most famous guy in the UK, especially connected to Michael Jackson at the time. Probably worldwide, the go-to person if you want to stamp out the rumor. And he said, listen, I got CNN, Fox News saying that Michael Jackson's in a coma. He's had a heart attack. They said, Uri, I spoke to him 2 nights ago. This was a Thursday night. 2 nights ago, on Tuesday night, yeah, he's struggling with the rehearsal. He doesn't think he has to do it. He's got a doctor with him. He sounds like he's okay. And this doctor seems to be helping him. And I think it's a publicity stunt, Uri. Because the amount of times he used to ring him, it's PR stunts. And Michael used to say, haha, you fall into my trap. I'm behind that story. Like I cut myself shaving, he put all these sticky plasters, like post-it notes all over his face and go to a bookstore and the paparazzi say his chin would have fallen off, you know. And so I said, let's not call him. Because Uri and him had fell out by this point. But they were going to get together and talk out through their differences. when they're back in O2 Arena. They wanted to do it face to face. It was over the Martin Bashir situation because Yuri walked Martin Bashir in. He felt he should have protected him a bit more, but it wasn't Yuri's fault at all. It was Michael's lawyer's fault. They should have wrapped him up illegals. So Yuri went away, said, yeah, you're right. And then about 10 minutes later, Yuri gets back to his mansion. The landlines are ringing off the hook, and I could hear it on his phone. I said, Matt, there must be some truth to this. I've got this person. I've got Larry King on the phone now. He used to be the Larry King Show. I don't know if it still exists, or the format. And The Late Show, The Tonight Show, your famous show, all these big presenters, Jay Leno. And these are credible sources. They're all saying that Michael has been, is run to hospital. He's had a heart attack. He's in a coma. I said, Yuri, okay, maybe you're right, but let's just wait for the news. So there's nothing on the news. I'm flicking through Sky News, which is a big thing back there, nothing. And then as I'm on the phone to him, I put the phone down, Mark Lester rings me, and then my heart went, because Mark is like the closest you can get. He rings the nanny to speak to Michael. He's the godfather of the children. He's got a different level of access to me. Numbers would change. Mark was the first to get the new mobile number. They change every 2 weeks to Michael Jackson. Then he would give it to us. And then Mark said, where are you? And I said, I'm at home. I said, I know what you're going to tell me. Yeah. He said, Michael's dead, Matt. I said, wow. I said, what happened? He said, well, I don't know, but I just spoke to the nanny and she was screaming down the phone, Michael's dead, Michael's dead, Michael's dead. And that's all I know. Just thought I'd let you know that it's going to be mayhem from now on. For the next 2 hours is going to be. I said, why ain't it on the news? He said, well, who's got the guts to say Michael Jackson's dead after what Michael's like with his publicity stunts, you know? And so they're all waiting for the coroner. So we left it. I said, Mark, are you going to be all right? Because he's like the closest friend to Michael Jackson. He said, I'm okay. I've got family around me. What, are you okay? I said, I'm fine. But just get my head around this whole situation. I started to cry. Madison was crying. She came and gave me a hug on the sofa. And then it hit the news. Boom. Michael Jackson in the coma, age 50. And then Madison was crying. I was crying, thinking, God, he's dead already. And then one of his, I won't say, but one of his family, one of his brothers called me to say, what's going on? Are you with my brother? And I already knew what happened by this point. And I said, no, I'm not with your brother. I'm in the UK getting ready for the shows, the 50 shows. He goes, okay, because they're saying stuff about my brother, that he's not too well. I said, okay, yeah, maybe ring people that are around him. I just didn't know what to say. I handled that situation. Then his friends would ring me. And I just had not answered the call. And then it took a while. And then it changed from Michael Jackson to coma to a heart attack. TMZ, they went for it. They didn't care. They had information that he was found dead at the house, the paramedics. They went straight out, boom. They took a risk, say Michael Jackson dead. No one else was willing to do that because you imagine if they got this wrong. LA Times, the legal lawsuit for Michael Jackson would be humongous. So I think TMZ took it down after a while. I'm not sure, I can't remember. So they went with the story. And then LA Times were the most credible, I guess they are still to this day, source that they wait for the coroner to announce it. So the coroner said, yeah, Michael Jackson is found dead. They released it, and then Jermaine Jackson announced it on TV, but he had long dead by that point. But they tried to save him for many hours. They weren't going to give up. Dr. Conrad Murray could overpower the paramedics, overpower the people at the hospital. They tried everything, but he was, for I understand, he was found dead at the house, long gone. So, but yeah, he had the power to, they were pumping him and doing everything they can, putting things down. I think pumps in his heart to try and bring Michael back because no one wanted to sign a death certificate to Michael Jackson. A bit like the Bruce Lee situation, he was worked on for hours and hours. Elvis Presley was worked on for hours and hours too, but now he was long gone. So yeah, and from that day, my life really changed because it went from Matt Fiddes, a multi-millionaire martial arts mogul, to being labelled as Michael Jackson's bodyguard, and I'm much more than that, and it used to really annoy me. And with the other Jackson brothers, they became Michael Jackson's brother all of a sudden, when they're in fact that's famous in their own right, you know. So whenever media's wrote about me now, it's always Matt Fiddes, the former bodyguard of Michael Jackson. It used to really upset me, and I had counselling over it. In the end, I had to embrace it. I met Elvis Presley's bodyguard, and he's also a martial arts champion, a guy called Bill Wallace. And I said, I really struggle with this. And he was bodyguard to Elvis Presley and John Belushi from the Blues Brother fame. He found him dead in his bed. And he said, listen, Matt, I have to deal with the fact that Elvis Presley died on me and John Belushi, the Blues Brothers. You just got to embrace it. You just see it as an honour. and it'll be in time. You'll be okay. And because all his karate achievements got swept into the account. You know, he's always known as Bill Wallace, Elvis Presley's bodyguard now. But yeah, you live to own it. But he had many bodyguards. But with me, at that period of time, I was more of a friend. He's a big chapter of my life. He taught me how to franchise my business, build my brand to the biggest of what it is. And it's still growing all around the world. We've got schools open every day and open every country of the world. And I went for his advice and his shrewdness. I wouldn't be where I am today with this company now worth over 100 million and taking on franchises all over the world. None of that would have happened if it weren't for Michael Jackson giving me a good talking to and keeping me accountable.
You personally, what do you think happened to him?
What do I think personally happened to Michael Jackson that night? I spoke to the doctor when he came out of jail. I read an article in a newspaper. The doctor brought out a book called This Is It. And we have the same agent that represents me for my martial arts fame, whatever. I'm not famous in America for that, but in Australia, we shared the same agent, a guy called Max Markson. And Max called me up to listen, Dr. Conrad Murray really wants to speak to you. I didn't want to know. But when they serialized the book in national papers, he mentioned me, Conrad Murray. He said, in the last week of Michael's life, Michael Jackson was asking, can someone please get Matt Fiddes or Mark Lester on the phone? And I read that in a UK newspaper and it hit me hard. And I thought, geez, he was asking for me. Okay. So I called up my agent in Australia. I said, right, let's do a call, but record it. And I want you as my agent and his agent to be mediator. I didn't want a fallout here because this guy killed my mate, right? And we talk, it's recorded. I heard him out. He had no remorse whatsoever. He blamed Arnie Klein. That Arnie Klein, he thought Michael was going to rehearsal in the daytime, but he wasn't. He was going to the dermatologist clinic and getting on a drip of Demerol. And that Arnie Klein could not come to London and continue because you're not allowed to license that drug. It's very highly regulated in the UK. It's only used for women in labour. It's called pethidine over here. And for short acting, certainly not on a drip. Maybe if people were dying or something. So Arnie Klein knew, Dr. Arnie Klein knew he couldn't come to London. So he was taking Michael off this drug fast. The side effects of that, Conrad Murray was saying, is that Michael could not sleep no matter what he gave him. And he was walking around. So Conrad Murray was trying to justify to me. But, you know, it's very hard to let Conrad Murray off the hook. But yeah, he was the fall guy. I think Janet Jackson has gone on record to say that as well. There are previous doctors that have got him hooked on this stuff that should be in jail more so than Conrad Murray didn't know what he was taking on. He was just a family doctor found by another bodyguard, I believe in 2007 in Vegas to treat the kids for flu because you couldn't just rock up at a GP doctor centre with Michael Jackson and his kids. Don't work like that. And then he found himself, Michael offered him his chance to go on tour with him. He gave up his 4 practices. He didn't know what he was taking on. He says he didn't know what he was taking on. That Michael was addicted to these very powerful painkillers. But yeah, one doctor was not communicating to the doctor. So Conrad Murray said, had he known he was going to Arnie Klein's office every day and being on a line of Demerol, had the other bodyguards told him, he would have took him to rehab and saved his life. But who knows? Who knows? What really happened? Nobody really knows which is strange because whenever we went around the world, everything was filmed and we'd always arrive a day before Michael or somebody would, and we put CCTV footage up and a security mat to record the ins and outgoings of Michael's bedrooms, hotel rooms, Neverland. At the house, there's no, the footage went missing, it's gone. We don't know the ins and outs of what went on that night. It's gone. To this day, no one knows where it's gone. Police went for it. That's the first thing they went for. It's gone. It's been erased. So, but I don't know. I don't know.
Hypothetically speaking, do you think Michael would still be alive if he killed Joe in his life and his brothers?
Okay. If he kept Michael Jackson and his brothers and his sisters in his life closely, we would still have him today. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. He had people in his ear telling him a load of nonsense. They were in for your money, on Jackson 5, reunion. They would love to have done that, but they wanted their little brother back. They wanted to get him in rehab. They wanted to sort him out, fix him up. That he would still be alive, definitely. And Joe mellowed out in the years. He mellowed out. He was different. Joe was fierce because he was protective against his... I know he never preferred him, but he was just... So look how he was in the trial. He turned up every day. He held his hand. There's pictures of, people don't believe me, I'm sure they can find it online or you could post it, but he held his son's hand, trying to keep him up together on that trial. He was there every day for him. He loved his son, but he's just different type of relationship with, it's just different to the average dad. He had to play the tough role, get him out of poverty to Hollywood, and then try and adapt it. But yeah, Joe had the power to save him, and Joe knew that. Joe knew that. I'd say how protective Joe was. Quite a funny story. Tito said to me, so at the bottom of Havenhurst driveway, there's a security hut with security guards in it, just in case people jump the gates. And there was a particular security guard who kept on falling asleep. So Joe went down there one day and he put a shotgun in his mouth. And when this guy woke up with a shotgun looking at Joseph Jackson, and Tito said to me, from that day onwards, that security guard never fell asleep again. That's how protective Joe was against his sons, all of them, not just Michael, every single one of them. You won't hear a bad word from, I know Latoya said some crazy stuff about being sexually abused by Joseph and all the rest of it, but the other brothers I spoke openly, intensively, more so about the dad and the brothers. They love him to bits. They call him the Hawk, and he did what he had to do, and he mellowed out in age. But he would still be here. Yeah, absolutely, he would be here. Jermaine, Tito, Jackie and everything, they would have took him, with Catherine and Joe, and they would have got him proper representation, and yeah, he would have been looked after.
Well said, man. Well said. Matt Fiddes, man. Incredible, insightful interview, man. We definitely got to run this back, man. Before we end it, let the people know what you got going on, man. I know you're a busy guy, man. You're doing your thing, man.
Yeah, so still looking for new franchises around the world. I'm still expanding the Matt Fiddes martial arts schools. People kind of buy them as investments, really, entrepreneurs and people who looking to buy a ready-made business. Been going nearly 30 years now. Next year, it's 30th anniversary, depending on when you're watching this, in 2027 will be our 30th anniversary. And yeah, I'm opening my martial arts schools franchise. My dance franchises are on fire. I'm selling them. And I mentor entrepreneurs on how to do what I did, what Michael taught me, how to franchise and grow your current business all around the world. And I have got a book coming out. It's my memoir, though. Before everyone get all the Michael Jackson fans get excited, yes, we will be talking about Michael, but it's not an expose. It's how, in context to how he taught me to be the man I am, to be a good dad to my 6 kids, to franchise my business, to give you some business tips, to maybe give you business good how to bring up your children in a good way, because Prince, Paris and Blanket have turned out incredible, very polite, right from a young age. So there'll be some chapters on that, but in context, but it's not an expose. It's a book about the Matt Fiddes, the MF brand, about my dance schools, my martial arts schools, my nursery chain, and my story. And he's included, obviously he's a big part of that. He's 10 years of that. So yeah, there'll be some funny stories and stuff I've never told before, and pictures and things in there. But yeah, the book is going to be like living in Michael's shadow, almost. My brand, how I build it, but in Michael's shadow, how I had to navigate through that. Yeah, so I took my time doing it. I've been offered the crazy money, the £1 million deals, I got offered a £500,000 deal to coincide, to do a book on Michael Jackson to coincide with the movie release. You see, a lot of books have been released to coincide with the movie release. I don't want to do a Michael Jackson book. I'm not selling out my friend. Trouble is, they all want dirt. There is no dirt. There is nothing I can tell you that's gonna. He was a good guy. He was a normal guy, believe it or not. He was different to all of us, but we're all different, right? We're all a bit different in our own ways. I work 3 in the morning, sleep into late. I love my work 24/7. I've got very understanding wives. We're all different, but I've got no dirt. And people who make up books are the ones who want to do it for the money. The privilege I've had, I've been a multi-millionaire since I was 19. I've never needed to profit or make money off Michael Jackson. And that's the difference. All the others around him need to make money off Michael Jackson. I do not need to make money. I've never took a penny off the man. Like we discussed, he's cost me money. And that's been my biggest lesson in life. I try to keep relationships non-transactional financially. If you go in business with me, I want nothing from you. I want a commitment from you, but I only make money if you make money. That's the way it works. There's all these fake business gurus out there, especially in America, You're not going to buy a course off me. It works. You make money if I make money. It's as simple as that. And I learned all this from Michael, and he's an absolute genius. And not just him too. When you're friends with Michael Jackson, you're friends with the people who run the Disney complex. Everyone, or in a circle, is insane. Billionaires. When you're in your early 20s, you hang around with them. You learn some very important lessons. So they say, like, great ideas talk about. Great people talk about great ideas. Medium minds talk about things. Small minds talk about people. Great minds talk about ideas. When I was around Michael Jackson and his friends, they all talk about ideas. How to make the next billion. How to change. How to stop cancer. How to stop AIDS. How to do a charity function. I was exposed to that in my early 20s, and that has a big effect on you. It's like the greatest mastermind network on earth I've been privileged to be part of. That's why I like to talk out and inspire others. That I've got no qualifications, got nothing. And I was lucky that media guy interviewed me, and Michael Jackson heard about it, saw me, wanted to meet me, trusted me, taught me how to franchise to build this multi-million-pound empire. And I want to inspire people that you can do what you want, like Michael says, as long as you dream it, believe it, and achieve it. Whatever you want, you can do it. Whether it's health, finances, whatever goals are, you can do it. You're never too old, no matter what disability you are. And if anyone wants to contact me, they will get me, they won't get a VA. Just DM me on my Instagram, @official_Fiddes. And I'm here to help. I want nothing from it. I'm just here to help you guys. And I've had a mad life, and I just want to give back like Michael gave to me. And thanks for having me on your show. It's been awesome.